Well, hello everybody and a warm welcome to the F1 Creator Series brought to you by EA Sports and the good people at SRC as well. It's tremendous to be back. George Morgan here at your service. My first appearance here on the F1 24 game of all things, but I'm not alone. Someone else who is in the same sort of situation as me. Dan Gilligan, your first broadcast as well, sir.
No, what am I doing here? I wasn't supposed to be here today. What's happening? Why am I in this room? What's going on? Why is there a microphone here? Who are you? What's going on? What's happening? What year is it? Who's the president? So yes. Hello everyone. It's George and Dan back, so we can resume normal Creator Series shenanigans as of this weekend.
Oh, very excited, Dan. And I must say, it's been an exciting time for you as well, because you've just come back from Montreal, the Canadian Grand Prix. Tell us about it.
I have, yes. I can't say too much for various different things, but I was with a team out there, and I was hosting up in the paddock. I was then doing some commentary during FP1, 2, 3 qualifying and the race. So it was all very exciting. It was a good race to go and have a look at, I must say. It was, a great bit of excitement. Lots and lots of things going on. About 7 different seasons in a day as well, which made logistically things a little bit more complicated, particularly moving around the circuit. But yes, it's a very, very good experience, and very fortunately I'm going to be off to Barcelona next weekend as well. So sadly, Creator Series, or not so sadly, depending on how much or not you like me. If you like me, great. If you don't, I don't know. And so yeah, I'll be in Spain next week, so you will not have me here in the Creator Series convoy.
Unreal. Well, they're going to have to do without me as well, because I'm in Budapest at Hungaroring next weekend, so there we go. Yeah, happens to us all. But yes, guys.
We're here for just a single round, and then we'll
you'll
disappear
never
into the
see us
ether.
again.
Never see us again.
Yeah, you'll never see us again. But it's great to have you all here with us as well, folks. Of course, we've got the Mystery GP here today. We won't know until we spin the wheel as to where we go racing tonight. But first and foremost, we've got to introduce somebody else. We have got our man on the clip book. It's the one, the only TK, who's joining us as well in the commentary box. We'll be providing us as well with all the incidents, all the moments, just divulging in some of those scary, precarious moments that we get generally in F1 Creator Series, which does happen quite often. TK, what are your thoughts?
I'm really looking forward to it this afternoon. Of course, first sprint of the calendar this season. A lot of drivers not necessarily looking forward to the random element that it brings, but I'm sure it'll bring some fantastic racing and just that little bit of spice that really adds to the excitement.
We do like a little bit of spice. We've had a little bit of spice as well. One of Dan Gilligan's favourite drivers, El Rey Guri, winning in our first round, round 1 here this season in the F1 Creator Series. He then went on to make it 2 podiums in 2 races, coming second last time out as well. Here is the race calendar that we have, so looking ahead in the Season 7 of the F1 Creator Series. We started off at Monte Carlo, Monaco, round 1 ticked off. El Rey Guri taking that one. Canada at round 2. Tom 97 would go on to take victory at that one. Mystery GP, that is where we are today. Upcoming, we are heading to Spain for round 4, Austria for round 5. Then we then have a break week, and then the Fanvote GP on the 13th of July as well. Hungaroring on the 20th of July, followed up by Spa, trip to Belgium, and then through to round 9 we have Australia. We're going down under. Las Vegas, we roll the dice for round 10. Another Mystery GP with a sprint pops up for round 11, and then the Netherlands, a trip to Zandvoort on for round 12, and then we finish the season at the Temple of Speed at Monza. And as you all are aware, times are subject to change as well. But it's quite a big night tonight, quite a big day. First of all, let's take you through the driver standings. El Rey Guri, as I mentioned, 2 podiums out of 2 races, 45 points to the good, with Alex Gillen, of course, former champion in his own right, 38 points, GV68 chasing those race results as well, still yet to take his first race win in the Creator Series, 32. Meraki, another former champion, in 4th place, 30, with Tim Marduk, our current and reigning champion, in 5th place, won it for the first time in that very controversial final race at Paul Ricard. 27 points to his name, with another former champion, Rastin Chai, behind. Tom 97, who I'm sure will kick into gear as time goes on. Keep your eyes on him. He is going to be quick this season. Paya, M Sky Z, and F1 Scott, who is back at F1 level, of course, after a stellar run in F2. Quite the story this season, I would argue. Probably the most competitive season, I would say, in recent times, I would say, Dan. I'm not sure whether you'd agree with that.
I think it's certainly up there. I mean, it's the nature of the beast, isn't it? It's that, yes, it's an annual series title, and yes, we have the same cars pretty much, certainly from a rulebook perspective, as last year, but of course, there's been the big changes to the handling model, even just within the game cycle itself. You know, this, I believe, the first race that we've had since those changes, though it may have been the last race, I forget off the top of my head. Yeah, it's one of those things where then these changes come along. They're a bit like Formula One's regulation changes in a way when a new game comes along, because then you've got those new handling models, new foibles to get used to. Of course, lots of people having their skeptical view, shall we say, on how the handling appeared at first when the game first came out. So a lot of the creators included in that, of course. And then, you know, with a bit of light bullying, I think, the community has gotten the changes they desired, or at least some of them, from Codemasters. And so, as a result, yeah, we've got this slight revision on the handling once again. So I suspect we're going to end up finding maybe some names who we wouldn't normally associate as being up towards the top end, some who maybe we'd hope would be up there and then maybe a bit further back down, and so on. And it'll be one of these things that might fluctuate a bit more over the course of certainly the first half of the season, but I'd imagine by then, for the amount of content that gets pumped out by some of these creators, if not all of them, that by that point they'll start to fit into their natural place with how they gel with that particular handling model and how they move forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think obviously there's been a lot of talk around the handling model on the F1 game, certainly many of the creators heavily involved, giving feedback to EA Codemasters as well, including myself as well. I've been part of that too, as being part of the EA Creator Network, and I myself have had a chance to try it, obviously doing my own thing on Twitch alike as well, which you can also check out. Of course, I'm not going to spread it around too thick, otherwise I'm going to get told off by Creator Series management. But yeah, I mean, looking ahead, we've got a fabulous race lined up. Sprint race today as well, Dan. Very exciting. And plus, I've got to talk about El Rey Guri again, because we've had a lot of history with this man. We, of course, have witnessed him time and time again, not necessarily at the top of the tree where it comes to race results, maybe in part of stewarding decisions, not that we have stewarding, but still, nonetheless, where it comes to decisive public opinion. Yeah, let's leave it at public opinion. This man, historically, the Spaniard, has never been too far away from an incident in the past. We're talking about him for different reasons at the moment, though. A winner in round one and second last time out.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's, I mean, I think that the pace has really always been there for El Rey. It's just been a case of, as you said, there's been that inconsistency in terms of the delivery of the result. They strike me an awful lot as like a sort of a Max Verstappen, a Sebastian Vettel, a Michael Schumacher, in that if they start the front and they get away at the beginning, then they're kind of then left to their own devices, and they're able to then go on and just get the good result at the end. And it's ultimately then a little bit of a boring race for everybody else. But if you're then getting involved in a fight with them, I think it then depends whether you are attacking or being attacked. I think that in defense, off the top of my head, just sort of immediately thinking about it as just like a gut reaction, I would say that we've typically seen more incidents for El Rey when they've been the attacker rather than the attacked. And so when it comes to that, I think their defense has not necessarily been too questionable. But then when it has been a case of, I'm going to go for a move, it's been something which has been poorly timed, or the wrong place to do it, or they've not been far enough alongside, or there were even accusations in the past that there were deliberate attempts to cause problems for other drivers, you know, not necessarily helped by the fact that there would sometimes be an unrepentant look or even a laugh on El Rey's face after an incident. So, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, the past is the past. Hopefully we don't have to refer to the past again, because, as you say, you know, we've had some great results for them so far this season. So if they can continue to do that, if they can continue to do it and do so in an uncontroversial way, then, you know, that means that we could potentially have yet another champion in Creator Series. There are no double champions so far in the series history. It's always been a new champion every single season, so could well be the case at the end of this one. But of course, still a long way to go. 13 rounds in the season. This is only round number 3. So based on all of that, you know, we've got everything else going on. Everyone's now saying, please, give us the wheel. I've got kids to feed and so on. And, you know, actually, I think I'm going to just keep talking a bit longer. You know, George, I just want
to... You know what I was about to say? Let's just let them
keep going.
fester Let them
Do
fester.
you know, let's change gears for a moment here. What do you think about the fall of the Conservative Party in the UK? Let's talk about geopolitics. Let's talk about the rise of the far right in Europe. Let's talk about how, of course, you've got Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. The screen is changing, and it's gone to the wheel. I have a sneaking suspicion the producer didn't want us to keep on talking about that. But there we go. Peya saying, "Give me my milk, mummy." If someone doesn't take the soundbite there, then they've not done their job properly, frankly. But yes, Peya, you do you in your own time. Don't bring that here into this public forum. That's I'm not a kink shamer, but that's a bit weird.
Right. With that in mind, let's head to the wheel. Right. First spin, guys, is going to be for the sprint weather. So that will obviously decide as to where we're going as well. Let's just get the ball rolling. Let's spin this wheel, everybody. Of course, we've got plenty of tracks out there. Actually, no, first spin is going to be for the track. Slightly misconstrued it from the chat I was provided. It's elimination. We're going to be obviously eliminating track by track. So that's the plan. So without any further ado, let's spin it for the first time and get our first elimination out the way, shall we not? So intriguing moments. Obviously, quite a few tracks on there that some drivers will love, some will hate. It's going to be goodbye, though, to Jeddah. No Saudi Arabian race here tonight, folks. So that is our first casualty. Thoughts, Dan Gilligan, on that one?
I think with the notification popping up there that Audi was what we're getting rid of instead of Saudi, then maybe that's a glimpse of the future, really. Maybe the Sauber team, due to be Audi in a couple of years' time, are in for some rough times in the future. Maybe even in a Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Who knows? But it does mean that, of course, some of my favourite tracks are still on here. Honestly, I would like to see a Baku or a Portimao. Either one of those. That'd be excellent.
Yeah, who knows, folks? You never know. Maybe with Audi leaving, maybe that opens up the door for Andretti. Who knows? I'm a big fan of the Andretti lineup now, since Mario Andretti followed me on Twitter the other day. Big thank you to him. But yeah, let's move onwards. Second spin. Let's get this ball rolling. Come on, everybody. We have got plenty of tracks to eliminate, and hopefully one that we're going to be taking through to tonight's broadcast. Mexico will not be that said track, however. It is gone. No trip to Mexico City here tonight for round 3 in the Creator Series. Let's spin it again, folks, and remove our next one. What's up next for the chop? Goodness me, it's Abu Dhabi. So we're not going to be going to Yas Marina. We'll remove that one forthwith from this allocation of circuits that we do have on this wheel. Let's spin it again. Let's keep this ball rolling. Come on, we've got to get this done. Obviously, these drivers are very keen to get racing, so we need to make sure we get ourselves into a position where we can do that. Bahrain is now gone. All the desert circuits departing here, Dan.
I think that there's some sort of prejudice against desert races within the Creator Series wheel. The wheel has taken on a life of its own. It has decided to go ahead and start marginalizing those parts of the world, really. And it's also gotten rid of Baku. No!
Painful. No street circuit at Azerbaijan. Unfortunately, that's been removed from this allocation of circuits. We've got, we're down to 5, or should I say down to 4, I should say. Learn to count, George. Portimao is gone as well, so we will not be going to Portugal. Well, there you go at the circuit. I must say, I love the Algarve circuit. It's round 1 on the GT Open calendar generally, which is a circuit I love to go to. Has been our first round over the last 2 campaigns. Right, we're down to 3.
Silverstone.
Qatar, Silverstone, and Kota. I hate to say it, Dan Gilligan. I fancy Silverstone to win this. Let's spin the wheel.
Please, no.
Let's do this. Oh, goodness me. A few shockers, I have to say. Oh, dear me. Silverstone's gone. Much to Dan Gilligan's delight.
I love Silverstone in the real world. In the real world, Silverstone is fantastic, but in these games, it is always a DRS train, and it's just boring. So let's celebrate we're not going to have that today.
Well, there we go. We're down to 2. It's between Kota and Qatar. And judging from the desert circuit reception we've already had tonight, it does sort of put Qatar in a bit of a difficult place. But let's spin the wheel one final time to decide where we're racing here tonight. It's between 2. We either go stateside or we're heading to Qatar. It looks like it's going to Qatar. We are. It is going to be a trip to the Losail circuit. It's goodbye, the Circuit of the Americas. We will not be going stateside tonight, folks. It's a trip to Qatar, the very fast circuit, the rapid circuit, where you're on the throttle, full throttle, near enough, all the way around. Incredible. So we're going to Losail. Dan, your thoughts?
Creator Series has clearly been paid off by the Qataris, like they allegedly paid for the World Cup. They've now paid for a Creator Series as well. And so what we're going to end up seeing here today is a track that is put together with massive human rights abuses, I would imagine, if the World Cup is anything to go by. But there we go. I'm here to be controversial, folks, and I think I'm doing a damn fine job.
Oh, wow. Okay, folks, so we've got lots to come here this evening. We've got more wheels to spin. Next up, of course, our first spin is for the sprint weather conditions. So we've got to decide now as to what conditions it's going to be for the sprint race. Let's take you through it, folks. Let's spin that wheel. I'm not sure whether this is going to be an elimination one or whether we're just picking it. Might be just down to elimination. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, we'll spin that wheel and get the ball rolling. As you can see, light cloud, wet, overcast, clear, dynamic, very wet, plenty on offer. It's going to be interesting. Let's see. I don't know, which conditions would you prefer here, Dan? I mean, obviously, when we go to Losail, I was going to say, actually, hang on a minute, we're going to Losail second. It should be dry, right?
It should be dry, but personally, I like to get slippery. I'm not a fan of going in dry like that. I think that you gotta just get the circuit into the right conditions, into the right window. You got to pay it all that attention, and then the wet conditions will come.
Good Lord. Well, the wheel has been spun. Overcast has been selected on the wheel. Now, whether this means elimination, I'm not sure. But I would say in this case, I haven't seen an elimination pop up. I think it's going to be overcast conditions for the sprint race in Losail. So that's interesting. We'd prefer a very wet session, would we not? I think
we absolutely would.
Yeah.
The drivers would be very excited if it was a very wet session.
Well, I mean, interesting. Right, so we're going to be deciding the qualifying weather now. So we've got two spins for this. Obviously, the first one of those two, I'd imagine, will be the opening stint. And then the next batch will be the latter stint. So you never know. We could be in for a bit of a twist where it comes to quali. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But let's now spin that wheel and get the ball rolling. So overcast for the sprint race. So there's two shades to qualifying with the weather.
Oh,
and
dynamic.
It's dynamic. So
I wonder what weather the dynamic system is going to select for a track in the Middle East. I really do wonder.
I mean, listen, anything can happen. Let's not say it's going to be dry throughout. You know, I mean,
George, look at me. Look at me. Say that with a straight face.
I'm trying to be diplomatic at this point in a weird way.
Don't be diplomatic. That's how the war started.
Good Lord. Right. Okay. Let's spin the wheel again for the third spin. Right. Let's get this in the bag, folks. Let's get at least some very wetness. Here we go. Oh, it's very wet. Qatar. Outrageous. Okay. So we're going from dynamic to very wet. Extraordinary.
Let's go, boys. Let's go, boys and girls. We're gonna get some sloppy conditions.
You got your wish, Dan Gilligan. It's gonna get sloppy at Losail. Right, okay.
Moist, some could say.
Moist, yeah. Moist conditions at Losail. We have now got our next.
Even I can't say that with a straight face.
Right, okay. So fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh spin. 4 spins in total, folks. So our first one. Obviously, as you can imagine, the changing conditions at Losail, it could be fairly tricky for the drivers to manage here tonight. Right, let's do this. Feature race time. Let's spin that wheel. Here we go. Oh, I've got chills. Are
they multiplying?
They're not multiplying. They're kind of staying at the same level. But it's clear, Dan, to get things started. So no surprises at the race start anyway.
Ooh, me no likey.
Good Lord. Okay, so clear to get things underway. Let's do that second spin. See what the weather turns into. I think we could be in for a twist here. Maybe not.
Oh, that's, yeah, big twist. M. Night Shyamalan wouldn't have expected that twist.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so 2 clear sections. So we're clear twice over. 2 out of the 4 are clear. The opening half of the race is just going to be straight up clear. So by that sheer right, it's got to be very wet for the rest, right? Let's wait
It
and
must
see.
be. If it isn't, then we riot, chat.
Yeah, then we riot. It's got to be a 50-50 split. Right, let's spin that wheel. Come on, let's go. Oh, come on, give it to me. Give it to me, as Tom would say. No way. I can't believe this.
Usually, George, I'd be right in there with the "give it to me" comment, but I just feel deflated now. I feel spent, frankly, and not in the good way.
Oh my lord, this is we just might as well just run a domestic race at Qatar at this point, surely. Right, okay. Who's rigged the wheel? Someone's saying in the chat. Let's just spin it again. Let's see what the next one is. I'm not sure whether we're going to have a veto later on, or whether the drivers are going to turn around. Let's twist it up.
Oh, look at that. We go from clear to light cloud. What a wonderful, exciting race we're going to have in Qatar, everybody.
So we've got a typical day at Qatar, pretty much.
Yes.
Clear, 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 light cloud, folks. That is the conditions. So no surprises, no wet weather tyres in the actual race itself. It's dry right through, and that is it. So there we have it. No surprises. Your reaction, Dan Gilligan?
Unacceptable. Frankly, we should be having a word with the weather authorities in Qatar and saying to them, hey, you need to engineer some cloud seeding to get some rain falling down on this circuit. This is what needs to happen.
This is actually being practiced in Saudi Arabia. In Jeddah.
Absolutely.
I was actually there when they were working on it. It's crazy. Incredible. Crazy.
It is, but it's one of these things where, having lived out in that part of the world, I can tell you now that when it does rain, because it does occasionally rain in the desert, they don't know how to drive out there when that happens. Because it's not necessarily their fault. They don't train to drive in wet conditions, but when it happens, you then end up having the road surface. All of the rain just gets down into all the cracks, and then it raises up all the oil and other bits and pieces that are all sort of settled down in there over time, and it gets onto the surface. It becomes very, very slick and slippery. So it's if you are out in the Middle East and it starts raining, slow down would be my suggestion, because otherwise you'd be in for a bad time. But there you go. See, not just controversy, helpful travel tips with Dan.
Superb. Thank you very much, Dan Gilligan. So there you have it, folks. The weather has been decided. We're kicking things off at the sprint with some overcast conditions. So we can actually throw it to TK. I think we'll bring him in on some of this because, of course, we would like to discuss this weather in more detail. TK, you've just seen the weather conditions be decided through the spinning of the wheel. I would like to say major shocks and or given the fact that, you know, wet weather was on the table, but we haven't really been delivered necessarily what we were hoping.
Of course, the mixable conditions, the random conditions didn't necessarily pay favour to some of the drivers here. Well, I was getting their reactions live as the wheel was being spun. I think as the tracks were being selected, there was a mix of hype and negativity, shall I say, as some tracks appeared and disappeared from the hopes and dreams of the drivers. But as the weather came and gone, of course, it's staying dry in Qatar for the race. I think most fairly happy about that. Not necessarily how sure they will be when we come to qualifying, of course. And one thing I do want to throw back to is your mention about the comment that when it rains in the desert, there's a little fun fact for you. More people die in the desert from drowning than they do from dehydration.
That's baffling, isn't it? Incredible, considering the amount of time that is spent in serious heat out in those deserts. I know I've been there, and it's, you know, you really got to be prepared for it, folks. It is some condition, I must say.
I'm trying to imagine how that's possible.
I can explain the science for you really quickly, because the flash floods come in rather quickly. They form really rapid currents, and people get sucked under because they aren't expecting the rain to come in so heavily and so frequently as it does, and they get pulled in by the rapids.
Wow. Create a series travel advisory. Don't go to the desert. You will drown.
Good Lord. Well, you've learned something today, folks. You know, at least you can take something away from today's Creator Series broadcast, aside from us, you know, obviously having a normal, typical dry race at Qatar. But tonight, we head to Losail. TK, your thoughts, please, because this is one of the fastest tracks on the calendar in a sense that it's generally full throttle for, I'd argue, 75% of the circuit. But what are your vibes around Qatar? What are your experiences?
Personally, I'm a massive fan of the track. I won't speak to the country or anything surrounding it, but on terms of track action, I absolutely adore it. Personally, I think it's one of the best for Formula 2 action, at least in the game and on last game as well. So I'm really hoping that our drivers this afternoon can replicate the amazing battles that I've seen here before.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, we got all the drivers now getting set, ready to tackle this circuit here tonight. Of course, the sprint now not far away. In terms of predictions, what can we expect, Dan?
Well, I would say that, I mean, Qatar, of course, it's a high downforce circuit. It's one of these things where we're going to end up seeing lots and lots of cars all being able to follow each other closely because they're going to have lots and lots of downforce on them. Yes, that's going to create a lot of dirty air, but fundamentally, the more downforce you put on the car, the better you'll be able to cope with dirty air than if you had something that was really trimmed out. If you do see drivers who are running a bit lower downforce, it will be very noticeable on the big main straight because they will start to just blast by the other cars even without the aid of DRS. Or, of course, if they are at the front of that queue, they may well be able to hold on to it when DRS is activated. But yeah, if you are looking at other things, of course, in the previous game, you would see cars running out of ERS deployment on a qualifying lap if they did not manage that around the lap itself. So that's something to potentially look out for in the current game as well, unless that's been remapped. I don't know. I've not played this one yet. But yeah, I would say in the race itself, there's going to be high tyre wear at this circuit. You know, you've got these big, long, loaded corners where there's going to be a lot placed on the tyres in terms of their condition. It will raise temperatures, of course. Even at night, it's a very warm environment here. You know, in Formula 1 last year, we saw that it was about 40, 45 degrees at night in terms of the ambient air temperature around the circuit. So it's something which you will be in a... It'll be a difficult thing for the cars and the tyres to get through this without incurring some sort of thermal problem of some description.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely spot on. I mean, degradation is a heavy factor at Losail, and given the fact that we are obviously taking on 100% races, we always do, folks at home, it does mean that you have to be very much on the ball where it comes to making your decisions. We saw, of course, Tiamat Marduk and the rest of the grid doing that back at Paul Ricard at the tail end of last season. In terms, though, of the stats, we've got to talk about our most successful drivers. Alex Gillen, of course, coming into this one where he is in the championship, second at this stage, just behind Elray Guri. 15 wins across the board in the EA Sports F1 Creator Series. Not only that, we've got some other names that are right up there too. Tiamat Marduk, 8 wins to his name, 28 podiums. Of course, current reigning champion as well. 60 races amassed on his part as well since taking part in the championship for the very first time. Zafso only ahead of him in terms of a number of races by 66 races on his part. Of course, tonight being his 67th, 2 wins to his name. Of course, remember, Season 1 champion is Zafso. But as you can see, we're just waiting for things to get underway for the sprint. In terms of Losail itself, opportunities through towards turn 1. The first sector tends to be pretty slow and steady. Well, I say slow and steady, it's rapid, but it tends to be a formality. It's sector 2 where things can get a little bit fraught now, but all 5 lights now lit, and it is pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go in the sprint race, and Zafso getting off the line, not necessarily the best, because Gwatz has come in through towards turn 1. Gwatz now leads here at Losail. Zafso getting mixed up, almost getting swallowed up through the first sector now. Matty D13 at the head of the order. Infratic down in third. Mr. Dale just literally watching everything unfold right in front of him here. Had a very successful time in F2 last season and has already come back fighting here at Qatar, here in F1 as well here, Dan.
Absolutely, it's been a frenetic first lap so far. You can see here a little bit of a look to the inside from Iraqi, and he's actually done that to try and cover off against Rasin Chai, who's suddenly appeared on the inside. I don't know if that was as much of a shock for Jake as it was for everybody else. At the back there's been a big incident at the back involving both the Red Bulls. You've got Zafso in there too. You've got Bigood in the Alpine that is often occupied by Tom, but not this weekend. And now then, we're on board with Benjamin Daly, who someone in the chat has £50 on. Well, Ben's going to have to get moving a bit more sharpish than what we see here as they get an overtake done around the outside, possibly into the triple left-hand, or triple right-hander, I should say, really. And no, instead they actually lose a position, this time to Elray Guri, the driver who currently is looking best placed to steal Daly's crown come the end of the season.
Yep, certainly so. Tiamat Marduk currently sat in 13th, tracking our current championship leader, F1 Scott. They're in 5th too, as they now barrel their way down through towards turn 1. Matty D13 taking the fastest lap of the sprint race for the 1:25.851. Of course, the lap only coming to an end. Lap 2 begins. DRS, as a consequence, enabled too as they hurdle through turn 1. And Mr. Dale, a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, retires from the session. It goes from bad to worse.
Certainly does. I think that's potentially a rage quit there. I mean, it could be that there's been an incident at the beginning there and they just think themselves, well, it's a sprint, so this will be over shortly and it's not worth very many points anyway, so let's just get back into time trial, do some more laps, do some more practicing for this one. If not, then of course I've completely gotten that wrong. But my assessment there would be that we've got a driver who's maybe not too happy with that incident at the back. Dale spun at the start and had damage, according to a message we've just received here behind the scenes. So there we go. As far as what we can see here, though, we've got Rasin Chai, champion from a couple of seasons ago, in Ferrari red this season, and currently trailing their teammate by a number of positions, down in 8th place, Infratic up in 3rd right now, of course. And you can see here Noiguera right on the back of that particular Ferrari we've mentioned there. You can see in this year's game the car's a lot more prone to roll, it seems, as they go through the corners. The cars look like they're rolling around much more often, which I'm not entirely certain as to the reality of that. It doesn't ever seem to me from on-track observation the cars roll around quite so much through the corners, but there we go. As they come into turn number 1, then we've got Noiguera now sending it round the outside of Guatz, trying to keep their Mercedes ahead of the McLaren, and so far that has worked for them. It is them up to 3rd place now, and Infratic into 2nd, just behind of Matty D.
Yeah, Matty D in control right now. Has had some decent form in sprint races in the past, running a little out wide though. Noiguera, as now we see El Rey Guri going wheel to wheel and just venturing off track, manages to get past Meraki, who's now down into 11th place. Just saw there a puff of smoke coming off the back of Hayes RB. Currently sits in 9th as well, 1.2 disconnected off the back of the Ferrari of Rasin Chai. Matty D13 though still in control, with Infratic in 2nd place, Noiguera in 3rd, Guatz down in 4th. Not having a bad run so far. Tom 97 still right in the mix of all this and is currently hovering all the way back in 5th, just behind Guatz in his McLaren down the inside as they come through this next right-hander. Still though they'll run wheel to wheel. Guatz trying to force the entry back through past the RB, but Tom 97, victor last time out in round 2. He is now up to 4th and 1 step away from a sprint podium.
Absolutely. Look at that then. So Guatz then down to 5th place, and it might well be 6th place for them now, as F1 Scott wants to reclaim that position after it was taken away from them. Already a time penalty for Meraki. It's lap 4 of the race here, and this is something that we definitely could have mentioned ahead of time. But yeah, penalties around this circuit with strict corner cutting, of course, rules enabled. Means then that drivers really pushing the limit through the high-speed corners in particular, where they're going to want to be taking out as much of the track width as possible. Well, that then could result in the penalties like what we've just seen there for Jake. So down to 13th place for the Williams driver and champion of a few seasons ago. And, of course, not looking like the best of starts for them in this one. Got Guatz now trying to get themselves through this race without many penalties themselves. You can see the back end of Noiguera's car going absolutely everywhere there. Tom 97 having much better lines through the corners, but just the nature of how the circuit flows from one corner to the next, it just means that they're not able to find a passing point just now to get themselves onto the back of Infratic just in front. Infratic, of course, still trying to chase after that sprint race win.
Yeah, Noiguera very loose on the rear here, and Tom 97 just waiting for his chance, ready to pick his spot, flashing on the rear as well of the Mercedes. Certainly displays the fact that he has run out of ERS, which will allow Tom to open up the overtake. He'll open up the door, make a move down the inside as they head through this next right-hander before venturing out of turn 16, down the long straight. Tom 97 now on the podium, and F1 Scott following through as he did against Guatz only, well, a lap or 2 ago. Scott now moves up into 4th, Tom 97 up to 3rd, the front 2 in danger. Infratic all over the back of Matty D13. But how long before Tom 97 joins them in a battle for the race lead here in the sprint?
Absolutely, and Meraki out of the race then, having retired from this one, I imagine in a similar vein as to what we saw with Dale earlier on, just a driver who's not had the best of luck so far in this race, and so they've ultimately decided to pack it in for a bit of extra practice time. But as it is then, we go back to the track action. We've got Curbs now down in 8th place in that Williams, having a decent enough start to today's proceedings to be still inside the top 10 when those quick drivers have come along and have gotten their overtaking done. We're looking at Tom 97 and then, of course, Rasin involved in that group as well. And as they've started to move forwards, of course, and others have gone back, then we start to see that bunching up of cars further backwards too. We've got El Rey and Alex Gillen still trying to find their ways forwards here in this one with 5 more laps to go.
Yeah, Tom 97 now within 0.4 of a second of Infratic in the battle that's about to happen for P2. Infratic just losing a little bit of tread on Matty D13 right at the front. 0.6 now between the Ferrari and the Haas that leads the way right now as they barrel their way onto lap 6 of 10. Still at this moment in time, Matty D13 who breaks into the pit lane side. Infratic with the truly insane straight line speed. He's going to be met toe for toe though by Tom 97. Both cars moving above Matty D13. Infratic now leads here at Qatar. In second place, Tom 97 with Matty D13 down to third. F1 Scott looking to pick his spot to potentially join this battle for the lead as well. As now we see them go side by side near enough. Tom having to back out of it. Infratic still in charge. The prancing horse hails at the front in this race.
Absolutely, and you know, this fighting is great for us, it's great to watch, but it's not so great as far as these two's efforts to get away are concerned. The more they scrap, the more they fight together, of course, the more it's going to invite Matty D, F1 Scott and all the rest of them back into this conversation. But, of course, with this many cars all in a queue like this could then be where we start to see some DRS trains beginning to form. That being said, though, the amount of high downforce they'll be running on this circuit, therefore the amount of time gain they'll get from opening up that rear wing flap should mean that we shouldn't see the car at the head of the field constantly staying there if the cars behind do want to overtake.
Yeah, heading through now in towards the middle sector, which will very soon head them through towards the final bend out of sector 3. Once again, they'll barrel down the long straight still. Infratic out in front, but as we've all witnessed, Ferrari just coming back in off the pit entry. Now once again we're going wheel to wheel. In fact, they're going 2 by 2. Noah's Ark for all the positions heading down through towards P8, and now it's Tom 97 who leads. Look at F1 Scott with a fantastic overtake on Matty D13 as well, but Matty coming straight back at him through sector 1. Infratic has lost the lead to Tom 97. F1 Scott now in podium contention.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't really understand the defensive posture from Infratic there. I mean, going all the way to the inside, of course, yeah, great, absolutely understand that. But once the other car has come alongside you and moves back to the racing line, why are you staying all the way on the inside? It doesn't make any sense at all. It just means you're going to have a more acute angle into the corner, you're going to lose speed on the way in and on the way out. And that's then what put them under threat from potentially losing even more places to the cars behind. But as it was, because Scott and Matty D were fighting one another as well as trying to fight with Infratic, he's gotten away with that one. But more defensive shapes like that, and you could end up losing a lot more positions.
Yeah, you certainly can. Alex Gillen, who we're currently riding on board with, stuck behind curbs right now in the Williams. The Haas operating in 10th place and sits second in our standing right now. Inter's pole back at round 1, finishing second. Held pole position as well as a whole. Now heading up through towards this next right-hander. Still chasing Elray Guri for the lead of the championship. Elray currently sat in 8th place. Matty D13 forfeiting the lead not too long ago. F1 Scott now looking to challenge Infratic for 2nd place as Tom 97 takes the fastest lap so far. In comes now Matty D13 bidding to launch himself back onto the podium again here in the sprint, but Infratic, he's very stubborn. We all know that. How much of a competitor he truly is. That is why Ferrari were champions last season in terms of the constructors, but Matty able to batter him down and take that P3 back. But still, a lot of work needs to be done to close up to F1 Scott, who has actually lost DRS and has received a 3-second time penalty. That's not going to help him in his quest to beating Tom 97.
It's absolutely not. That's a real shame when it comes to F1 Scott. They were up there as driver of the day for me so far, if not for that, and that now has kind of ruined things, because unless they're somehow able to break the DRS from Matty on this particular lap and then be a second a lap faster for the last couple of laps, then I'm sorry, it's going to be off the podium for them. But you never know. It is now just over a second, actually. Or it's fluctuating here, there. So it could be that Scott's actually able to get out that 1 second gap they need to Matty D behind. But that 1 second gap, of course, is not then going to overturn the penalty. So yeah, it looks like now as they come through the second sector and into the final sector, this is then what we end up seeing. So yeah, F1 Scott's going to be under attack for the rest of the race. And let's take a look then through the final turn. We've got Fabio and Racing, 2 teammates at Ferrari, of course. Fabio is going to want to think about themselves. They want to get the best result they possibly can, at least right now, for the team. The team's going to get the same amount of points regardless of which order the drivers finish in. And so now it's going to be, I suspect, a bit of a scrap between them as there's contact there with Alex Gillen shutting the door on the car on the inside. I'd love to say that's the first time we've seen that happen, but sadly not.
Peya was actually the victim in that instance, coming through turn 1. He's now down to 10th place. Did very well to maintain the car out on track. Has now got Be Good in behind him right now with Gwatz down in 12th. Gwatz, remember, starting in the top end in terms of his race, but has now since detailed offwards or curtailed down to P12 in the McLaren. His teammate Timothy Marduk, the current reigning Creator Series champion, down in 16th, not necessarily having the best sprint race in his own right, but Ferrari, I must say, doing a mighty job right now. And Racing, who was at the fight tooth and nail to raise his own stakes, has now brought himself into this podium equation alike. Currently hunting down his teammate Infratic now. I wonder whether they work together, whether Infratic will open up the door and allow his teammate through. Doesn't look like it, as they now go nose to tail, heading through this very, very fast and tricky Losail circuit. Another 3-second time penalty now being dished out, this time to Gwatz. That's not going to help his cause, not well whatsoever. Noiguera picks one up too, so there we go. More penalties being distributed. In fact, 4 different drivers sustaining penalties in this race. Matty D13 takes back second from F1 Scott. He's had a fabulous race as young Matty, as Gwatz retires from the sprint.
Yeah, and for Gwatz, I commend them for having stayed out as long as they have. But ultimately, yeah, when you've got 2 time penalties at least, if it wasn't even more than that, in a sprint race where everyone else is still close around you and you're outside the points, then I can understand that motivation to just come into the pits at the beginning of the final lap. But as it is right now, Curbs on a good run so far. 10th place for them, just tucked in behind Peya at this point in time. Peya, of course, having their front end cut off a bit by Alex Gillens. They got past earlier on. Thankfully, it looks as though there's no damage on that V-carb, so we've got nothing to worry about there. F1 Scott, of course, they're going to get demoted later on at the end of this race. Noiguera too. So Elray's probably going to end up finishing this race in 5th position. But look at that then, all the way off the circuit. He'll say thank you very much. So too will Alex Gillen. And now let's see then if on this final lap there's any do or die moves from anyone inside of this top 10. But as it is right now, I'm interested to see whether or not Noiguera ends up losing that position to Peya, because right now that 2.7 second gap isn't enough. Tom 97 is going to come across the line any moment now and take the win here in the sprint. It'll then be Matty D in 2nd place, and that's regardless whether they finish 2nd on the road or not, because F1 Scott will not overhaul them with that time penalty. And so yeah, it is Infratic on the podium, then Racing Chai, then Elray, Alex, F1 Scott, Peya, and then Noiguera just finishes outside the sprint race points in 9th place. So there we go.
Yeah, Tom 97 taking a brilliant sprint race victory to coincide with the victory that he took last time out off the back of pole position for round 2, and looks in real good form. Looking ahead to the feature race that we have coming up, Infratic on the radio saying, "You're just going to cost me time," and no doubt in conversation with Racing Chai, no less. You do have to wonder whether there is going to be harmony between the 2 Ferrari drivers. We'll have to wait and see, but at this point they've both gained some decent points. GB68 coming across the line to take the fastest lap in the sprint race with a 122.8, but it's Tom 97 in the RB who finishes ahead of Matty D13 with another brilliant sprint race performance. Infratic finishing in sprint 3rd, and further down, of course, Racing Chai's teammate in 4th. Not a bad day for Ferrari, but they've got a lot of work to do to catch up with Aston Martin, who lead the championship in good style right now, Dan.
They certainly do. Sprint race points, of course, not nearly as numerous as the Grand Prix, but we do see that, those marginal gains here and there. The fact is, Ferrari have outscored Aston here today. That's going to be great for their potential retention of the Constructors' Championship. And Tom 97 gets the driver of the day, which I think, after the penalties for F1 Scott, completely justified. Very, very good rise up the field from them. So to give you the full rundown, we've got Tom 97 taking the win in the sprint with Matty D and Infratic alongside on the podium. Then from 4th place down, we've got Racing Chai, Elray Guri, Alex Gillen, F1 Scott, Peya, Noiguera, Curbs, Big Good. Then we've got Jack Socials, and we've got Safso, GB68, Devil Noob, Ben Jaley, Ricky Rickon, and then Gwatz Maraki and Mr. Dale J.E. That was not the smoothest I've ever done the rundown of a race, but I apologise. I've not eaten very much today.
There you have it, folks. Those are the results from the sprint, and all the plaudits going to Tom 97 after a spirited performance, a spirited drive. There's one man we need to bring in for his reaction off the back of what we can only describe as a very volatile sprint race. It's TK. TK, any thoughts from yourself? Have we got anything we can look back at?
We do indeed. There's definitely a couple of instances we can go and have a brief look back at. Obviously, Mr. Dale being the very first one, turn one, lap one, turn number two. Obviously, an unfortunate DNF for himself. We'll play it out here. Just chasing down the Ferrari of Infratic. You see he just loses the back end through the left-hander, trying to avoid what almost was going to be a spin by Fabio himself. And then into the left-hand side of him is the kick Sauber of JD Devil Noob. That gets him some floor damage, and that's pretty much his race over and done with in terms of the sprint. We have Devil Noob's point of view as well from his race start. We can go and have a look. Apologies if that's a little bit loud on stream, but he's trying to get through the pack just behind Big Ood at the moment, behind the likes of GB as well. Into the pack he goes, contact with them, and Dale's just right in the way, and unfortunate for the collision between the Kick Sauber and the Red Bull. Those two, of course, pretty unavoidable in terms of crashes between the two of them. And finally, you mentioned the contact between Alex Gillen and Persia as well, down into turn number one. We can see it here, lap number 8, beginning lap number 9. Alex Gillen having a fantastic run, looks to the outside, and as you quite rightly said, slams the door on Persia. Persia very lucky to be able to save the car and actually avoid damage, just managing to counter steer that Visa Cash App Racing Bull and keep the car in a straight line, only losing a couple of positions.
Yeah, truly dramatic stuff. I mean, TK, from your verdict, looking back, some major losses there. I suppose you look at Mr. Dale, you know, with the whole rage quit. Not to mention, we got to talk about Meraki as well. Some big blows, I think it's fair to say, off the back of that one, and especially when you consider Meraki a former champion. Not really a scenario you want to put yourself in. A DNF in the sprint race.
Not in the slightest. I think he was aware of the penalties, I think he had a little bit of damage as well, from what I could understand. There was definitely wing damage on the Williams, if not a little bit more greater damage than that off the bat. But in terms of mentality, I think it had been definitely hampered going into the race. He was optimistic. He was looking forward to Qatar, and yeah, after a couple of laps, it wasn't that wasn't the story that he was telling.
No, not at all. I mean, obviously, looking ahead now, we've got the qualifying sessions on the way. I mean, if we look at some of the form players, Dan, I mean, we've got to talk about El Rey, have we not? I mean, again, another decent performance, I would say, in terms of the sprint. Kept himself out of trouble, you know, no nosebleeds in sight, but sort of worked his way up the order and some reasonable points on offer for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good race from them from what we saw, and you know, there's nothing that we could really complain about from that perspective at all. Not that we want to find things to complain about necessarily, but yeah, very, very good so far for them. And of course, in a championship where they're currently the ones in the driving seat, that's not a bad little haul of points initially to get us started. I must say though, there are drivers currently still out on circuit when they should all be retiring, so we can set up the next session. So if they would kindly stop, that would be absolutely wonderful. But yes, very, very good race from El Rey and the rest as well. A couple of moments here and there. I wouldn't say there was anything that I saw that was particularly penalty worthy necessarily. Maybe a couple of you know, poor decisions, shall we say. Things like with Alex Gillen, of course, cutting across the front of the V-carb. You know, viewing it from on board, that's a racing incident. That's not something you'd ever attribute a penalty to, but you can still attribute blame in an instance like that, and so you would say Alex is at fault, but yeah, racing incident, not anything to get too excited about in the end. But yeah, I think that going into the race, I think that the ones that we should maybe be looking out for, I think that our protagonists in this one are going to be Tom97 and El Rey. I think they're the two that we're going to have to look for. I mean, just Tom97, great performance there to get themselves all the way up to the front and take the win there, and then El Rey, of course, following up nice and quickly in a season in which they've already looked very, very quick anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just building on El Rey, TK, I mean, do we look at his current form and where he sits? You know, in comparison to previous seasons, myself and Dan had actually discussed this briefly before the start of the show, and it's almost like whether the new handling model is suited his driving style, perhaps that little more aggressive touch, perhaps that is being welcomed in F1 24.
Yeah, I think it is something we were discussing at his win at Monaco, of course. Some drivers taking to the new handling model like fish to water, some not necessarily quite so nicely, but Eric Guri definitely has one firm hand on the championship already. It's a long season ahead of him, but if he can continue the form that he finds himself in at the moment, for sure, he's going to be one of our top contenders.
Yeah, and looking back at Alex Gillen as well, Dan, I mean, obviously a former champion as well. We alluded to, obviously, his incident with Hay, a racing incident, obviously, that would be deemed, I think you're absolutely spot on. But obviously, a decent drive on his part to certainly get to where he did in terms of the top 10. Do you envisage him to go stronger after qualifying?
I think so. I think that it's one of these things where drivers, they get their dips and their rises and so on and so forth as time goes on. I think that, when you come to the end of one session and you've got the opportunity to kind of reset and go once again, it's, it can be up or down for anybody on the grid. You could have been like Tom 97 there. You've gone all the way through the field, you've won the sprint, and then you could get to qualifying and it all goes terribly wrong. It's one of these things. So I think that predictions just yet on that, I would be hesitant to put out, but certainly, all the drivers that we've got in, as you've been saying at the beginning of the show, the top of the show, it's certainly one of the most competitive seasons that we've seen so far. So I'd say there's potential for everybody to improve versus where they were in that sprint race, with the exception, of course, of Tom 97, who won the thing.
Yeah, as well at the same time, we got to say we're missing a few other key names as well. We look at M Sky Z, for example, not necessarily featuring in tonight's exchanges, but someone who has been so consistent, so quick in the past. I'm raising the point on him right now as someone we probably would have expected a little bit more of, TK, in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I think we were shocked at his performance in Monaco. Not necessarily performing the best last week out as well, and of course missing round 3. So I really hope that he manages to find his feet with the new handling model, with the new game as well. But if the first couple of rounds are anything to go by, I'm not looking to see MSkyZ towards the top of the pecking order. But you never know. We've all been surprised here and there, especially when it comes to motor racing. So who knows what can happen.
Yeah, and speaking of newcomers that have found their way in, I must say, Dan, I appreciate he got a penalty, but F1 Scott looking really well fixed and well suited to this current F1 grid, was brilliant in F2. And it's very seldom seen that we see a commentator, one of us, I should say, go on and be successful where it comes to racing against these avid racers that race week in, week out. Scott proving, though, that he's no mug, and he really does deserve to be there.
He does indeed. I must say, George, you and I, the only reason we don't compete is that we just embarrass all the rest of the drivers.
We've had some great fights in F2, mate. We've had legacy fights.
And we had those great fights, but we deliberately held them a bit further back so as not to embarrass everybody at the front, obviously. And I'm still the fastest commentator. But in terms of all of that, it's good to see them moving up the order. Of course, the nature of the sprint race, you've got reverse grids and other bits and pieces going on. But I think, if I remember rightly from when we were looking at the championship table earlier on, he's 10th place in the championship. He's doing very, very well indeed. So it's either 10th place or 10 points, or maybe it's both. I don't know. It's one of the two. But he's done very well up to this point, and he's been able to get himself a good shoe-in for potential even better results in the future. If not for that penalty, then that was going to be a podium. The question then would have been whether it would have been second or third, because ultimately, they had second on lock for a little while, and then after the penalty, I have a suspicion that if they're anything like me or an awful lot of other drivers, that when you then start getting penalty, you then start making mistakes, and then you end up sort of overthinking it, and you end up then it compounds the issue. So whether that then ended up causing them to fall backwards in relation to where Matty D was, of course, then that's something to maybe pick up with them later on, ask them behind the scenes, or maybe if they do the seemingly impossible and get themselves a podium or a win here in the main race, then we could ask them after that.
Yeah, we could do. We're going to immediately throw TK away now and move into qualifying action. As you can see, 18 minutes to get going here in quali. And you can imagine that it's going to be a very, very busy opening stint, can you not, Daniel? Because obviously, given the fact that we know the rain's coming later on, it's going to be a very abrupt finish, I think. Many of the drivers are going to go out. They're not going to waste time on intermediate tyres. They're going to want to run their fastest laps, get them out of the way, just to ensure that they have the best grid position possible.
Yeah, I would say that if I were one of the drivers here, I think I would actually be risking an intermediate tyre run at the beginning. Get the points for fastest intermediate lap, and then that way, by the time the rain comes, and it will come down hard, because of course it was very wet, that was set by the wheel earlier on, of course, then, when that comes along, of course, the track will very quickly get itself slower. So we can see that we've got Alex Gillen, we've got Meraki, we've got GB, we've got Tom 97 all going out on that intermediate tyre. Everybody else going out on the softs. So with 10 minutes until the rain comes, which is the prediction we're getting from the drivers, then 10 minutes gives you enough time to get out there. I would say get 2 laps done at the very least, if not maybe a third, but that might be asking a bit too much of the cars and the tyres, given that you've also got to do out-lap, in-lap, in addition to the time laps. So I'd say, yeah, 2 time laps is definitely possible. It might be that the rain is coming down on your in-lap after all of that, but yeah, we will wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, on the face of this now, I mean, your concern is going to be, if you're going to run that intermediate lap, you've got to get it in at the very beginning. You can't wait around. Safso retiring. Good Lord.
Interesting.
Quite the shock. Not part of the plan, Dan?
Possibly not. I don't know. Did they even emerge on the circuit? I have no idea. If that's been a retirement in the pits, or if that's something where they've had an issue or something, I don't know. I suspect from the TK is typing in our commentary booth chat that we might get an answer in just a moment. Tech issues in the sprint, so starting from the back to avoid drama. That is a paraphrasing rather than a quote, is what we're being told.
Yeah, well, there we have it. So there's one position we can definitely rest assured will be decided. That was, of course, Afso at the tail of the field. Unfortunately to see him bow out so early, but much like real-life Formula One, issues can occur. At the end of the day, it's the driver and the car at the same time. Both need to be in optimal health in order to be at their very best. F1 Scott on soft tyres, not wasting any time. I do wonder who is going to be the first to lodge their intermediate tyre time as well, because given the fact that we do have rain coming within the next 10 minutes or so, we will be seeing those times hit the front very, very quickly. It does throw a bit of a spanner in the works, especially those that are running fast laps on softs, as F1 Scott registers a 1:21.4. If they come into contact with a driver on intermediate tyres, I mean, that could essentially are wasting a compounded tyre, are you not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be that you end up them bailing out. That gives you a little bit more time to then, of course, get back into the pits and get round for another lap on a new set. But yeah, tripping over intermediate runners is definitely a possibility around here. You get around this lap very, very quickly. I mean, a 1:20 is already down towards the lower end of Formula One timescales, if you like. Not quite down at the bottom, of course. That would be where you see lap times like in Austria and other short circuits. Canada you could put there as well, where you're getting sort of 110s or even to the 1 and single digits, as El Rey takes away that provisional pole from F1 Scott. I must say, given how quick we know El Rey Guri is, for Scott to be less than a tenth away, that shows just how quick they have been so far this weekend.
Very impressive from F1 Scott. Of course, Scottish by name, Scottish by very nature and nationality as well. Also a fantastic singer.
What are you trying to say about Scott? What's that all on about?
His content is fabulous, I must say. He's brilliant. Fantastic human being is Scott.
And he'll be thrilled to know he's known within the paddock.
He is very well known within the paddock. Second place as well here in this very virtual paddock, and looking really strong. 1:21.402. And just in behind El Rey Guri, as I said, representing us commentators in a very good light as well. Peya in third for RB2. We've got Infratic in fourth. JD Devil Noob fifth fastest. Meraki setting his time on intermediate tyres. GB running intermediate tyres alike, as is Tiamat Marduk. Meraki, I think, the fastest intermediate runner at this point in time. So will take the intermediate points should he bring it home. Tom97 not wasting any time. Goes to the top with a blisteringly quick 1:27.37. That's going to be tough to beat.
It certainly will, yeah. That's going to be very tough to beat, especially given that if the rain is only now just a few minutes away, then there's essentially just one chance, one time to go around there and get it. Now, of course, with all the drivers having run around, that will be helping with the track evolution. This is a brand new session now, of course, versus the sprint that we had earlier on. That was in a separate lobby. Now this is all remade as a Grand Prix style weekend, so away we go with this one then. So all that rubber is being laid down into the virtual track. That is going to be giving an extra little bit of performance the more and more as they go around. So actually it puts into perspective just how good of a time F1 Scott's was initially, because of course that one was the first time to go on the board. So he's got the track at its worst condition, and yet he's right up there in the top four as it is now, as Alex Gillen jumps up into third.
Yeah, he's within a tenth of Alex Gillen as well, which I think is impressive when you factor in that Alex Gillen is a former Creator Series champion. Meraki confirmed intermediate tyre pole, so that is decided. So points on the table for Meraki. Congratulations to him on achieving that. That'll go a long way in terms of the championship. He came into this weekend 4th in the title race. And the highest Williams performer as well, his teammate Curbs. Of course, both of them, the longest serving teammates in F1 Creator Series. Curbs currently 12th in the championship alike. We'll be hoping for a decent run when we go into the feature race after qualifying. But now for Meraki, it's all about registering the fastest lap possible on fresh, soft tyres. Needs to do so as well quickly because rain not too far away. So will not want to be perturbed by the slick surface that could yet be on show here at Losail.
Absolutely, yep, and that could be all to play for come the end of their outlap here. They're going to have to get themselves going sharpish. And so we've got Ben Daly on an outlap as well, GB68. You know, these drivers who decide to go out and set their time on the inters first, trying to get that extra point, that's then going to end up potentially biting them now because we are hearing that the rain is starting. You can see it already running down the bodywork of Guatz's McLaren.
Yeah, the rain is pouring. Guatz at this moment as we're running on board with him, trying to find as much grip as he can on his soft compounded tyres. 122.3 is what he managed to register before and has had to back out of it regardless, just can't quite find the time. And Top 97 retiring, no question, he will be on pole. I can't see anyone usurping that 120.737, and Mr. Dale has spun as well off the circuit. There you can see him on the right-hand side. GB68 has also been disqualified as well for going the wrong way, so surely that has decided it. Top 97 on top. Oh, big crash there. Meraki losing it and front wing gone. Meraki, unfortunately, well, having damage at a very sensitive point in qualifying.
Yeah, and that means then that those drivers down at the bottom end, I mean, we can watch now with Ben Daly, but I don't suspect it's going to be a particularly quick time for them if they are able to get themselves around the circuit in any quick order because of just the sheer amount of rain that is coming down so quickly. You can see the attitude of the car, how much it's squirming and sliding underneath them. And as they come up to the next corner then, they're following in close behind the Aston Martin, I believe, of GB68. There's a bit of a love tap there at the back end. But both drivers continue to push on then, and you must say the Aston is going slow, race control, disabled DRS, so yeah, this is not how they would have liked it to go. They would have liked that extra point, of course, from winning the Inters Championship round, but that was won by Jake, and so Jake then is going to reap the benefit of that extra point, but they're going to start from much further back on the order. That means then that as an order, it is exactly as you see it right now. The drivers will not improve between now and the end of the session. So we will see Tom 97 on pole, then El Rey Guri alongside. As we said earlier on, that is what we predicted the main title battle of this race would be. And then it is Alex Gillen, F1 Scots, great performance from them. Rasinchai, Noguera, Perya, Infratic, Biggood, and then JD Devil Noob as the Aston goes round just in front of Ben Daly here. Let's see what happens when the Aussie comes round the final corner. I don't suspect it's going to be any quicker than they've done so far. And round it goes. Oh dear. What is it our reigning champion said recently about Mr. Gillen? In the mud?
Well, in the puddle, I would say, at this point for Tim Mardek. Let's go across to TK. I bet you he's got some news for us from the pit lane. TK, what's your verdict on this? Obviously, the rain has definitely hampered a few drivers. Meraki, Tim Mardek, Safso, GB68. Of course, Safso being hampered for different reasons. Mr. Dale as well, who was certainly hoping for a big season, judging from what he perceived to be a very successful F2 championship run. It's been a tough qualifying for them all.
It certainly has. Challenges being thrown left, right and centre for each individual driver. We're able to go back and have a look at that incident between Meraki and Mr. Dale. We joined Meraki here on board as he's about to run through turn, I believe just the last couple of corners or first few corners. You will see Dale just on the exit of the apex, so trying to get himself nice and covered off. Maybe not on this. It's bugged out a little bit for me, so just bear with. See if I can get that to reply.
Whilst you're just getting that set up again.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Dale. Just he comes back onto the track. It's unfortunate there for the Rebel Racing driver. We can watch on board from his point of view. He'd earlier spun just down at turn 1, and there's quite a considerable amount of time where he's sat here waiting just for all the traffic to go past, and the minute he thinks he's free and clear, he tries to swing that Red Bull back onto the track, and unfortunately through comes Meraki, and the two collide together.
Yeah, not a lot that can be done about that whatsoever. As you can see in the bottom left of your screen, Tim Marduk having some serious issues, I think, out there at Qatar. But yeah, truly some dramatic stuff. And off the back of it, though, quite a sensational front three that we have for the race, though, here, Dan, because you've got Tom97, El Rey, who is in the form of his life right now, and Alex Gillen, who is second in the championship. So we got our two current championship protagonists. Throw Tom97 in there, who should be by rights and by form. Of course, there's only one race appearance that he has had so far in the Creator Series this season. He's won it, not to mention taken pole. That is a mouth-watering front and second row if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I really like how this race is shaping up. What I don't like necessarily is how long it's taking now for us to get started. The rain's coming down, lads. We're not going to get any quicker times. Let's go ahead and just get into the race now. But we've got Jake, Ben, Jack and El Rey thinking that somehow they're going to defy the gods themselves, and by the gods I don't mean the weather, I mean Dirk, and that everything will change. But it's not going to happen. It's going to be rain for the rest of the session. You're not going to go any quicker. So they need to just get themselves into the pits at this point and retire the car, or retire the car out on the circuit. Frankly, it doesn't matter anymore. But what did matter was when we had Gwatz and Mr. Dale, whilst we were having a look at those clips there with TK, they decided to do some donuts just ahead of the pit entry. And it's a cautionary tale as to why you shouldn't do that in qualifying, because Mr. Dale now has a grid penalty. They will start from the back of the grid.
Yeah, it certainly does, and that's not going to help in terms of quali. Meraki coming straight into the pits. He's enjoying himself out there, is he not? But we have got certainly a fantastic race to come. The Spaniard El Rey Guri second, just behind Tom97 in qualifying. Tom, though, dominant. The sole 120 that has been registered out on the timing screen, a 120.737, enough to gift him a pole position once again here in the F1 Creator Series. El Rey Guri, though, I'm sure is going to batter him down heading through towards turn 1. He's going to be given every chance to try and challenge Tom97 at the very start. GB68 on the team radio saying, have we got time to get a dry lap in? I would say not at this point, Dan.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's clearing up. I think that everything will be tickety-boo in about 5 minutes time. Oh wait, we've got less than 5 minutes in the session. Oh no!
Oh dear.
Now we have 3 drivers who are sat in the pit lane who are not retiring yet. So welcome to the Creator Series podcast with Dan and George and TK as the special guest. And let's go ahead and say join the conversation. Hashtag F1 Creator Series. But let's also just. Again, let's talk once more about some geopolitical affairs. Have you looked at the price of grain recently, George?
I got to say, I haven't, to be honest with you. I can tell you, I've been more focused on the price of broadband lately. But
Yes.
Let's take you through the live standings. El Rey Guri is currently on top, as you'd expect, obviously coming into this race. With 45 points to his name, Alex Gillen in second. GB68, it's looking good for Aston Martin right now. 32 points going to GB. Meraki, who we just saw out there towards the closing stages of qualifying, 30 points to his name. Current reigning champion, Tim Marduk, in 5th on 27. So there you have it, folks. That is post results from the sprint. And now we're going to be heading into the feature race equation. And Tom97 with every chance here of landing yet another blow to the rest of the grid order. 2 races in. Could it be 2 wins? Will it be 2 podiums? We'll wait and see. Either way, there's an opportunity for a 100% record on offer here for Tom97. Obviously, would not want to be outside those top 3 places. El Rey Guri, I'm sure, though, is going to try and advance his charge right at the top. We'll have to wait and see whether he does do that. Ferrari, once again, looking decent, though, Dan. Racing Chai starting 5th, Infratic in 8th.
Yes, that's certainly a thing that is happening. I've been slightly distracted by a message that we've gotten where it says that El Rey and Meraki have popped out for a quick break. So they're leaving us to ransom. Basically, so we've got another 2 minutes now. We've got to just sit here and watch the rain come down in Qatar.
Therapeutic, Dan Gilligan.
It's just ASMR at this point. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna lower my voice and I'm gonna get nice and close to the microphone like this, and I hope that everybody is really enjoying this as I sit inside of your ear. And this is possibly the weirdest moment of the evening on the Creator Series broadcast, but that is what we're all going to enjoy together here and now. Apparently I'm maxed out, so now I'm being told to whisper. And so let's just all take a moment where we listen to the sound of an engine starting up inside of the pit lane. I don't know why. Whoever's deciding to do that and go out onto the track is a Muppet. And it's Elray Guri. Out onto the track they go as we hear the pitter-patter of rain, the tyre squeal, as we go down the start-finish straight and out of the pit lane, whilst George Morgan barely manages to keep it in.
I'm trying my best. Unbelievable. Thank you so much, Dan Attenborough, for that one. I mean, honestly, I absolutely love that. 35 seconds to go. For those of you who had the choice of watching the 24-hour of Le Mans or the F1 Creator Series, you've chosen correctly, folks. Welcome to the F1.
Have they?
Yeah, thank you for coming to the F1 Creator Series for the ASMR sessions with Dan Gilligan. We're looking forward to the race. Dan, in your best ASMR voice, can you give us a prediction for the race later on?
I can. I'll just give a moment for Dirk to turn the gain back up again. So, I think that in the race, we are likely to see a driver win.
Fabulous. That's stunning. Let's take you through the short qualifying results then. Tom 97 on pole position, being met by Elray Guri on the front row, the Spaniard, the championship leader at this point, starting from second. Alex Gillen in third place with F1 Scott in fourth. Rasin Chai in fifth place with Noiguera in sixth. Peya in seventh. Infratic in eighth. Began in ninth. We then have J.E. Devilnoob in 10th. Rikiri Khan down in 11th place. We then have Quats in 12th. Matty D13 in 13th. Jack Socials in his first race. He'll be starting 14th place. We did not get a chance to even read the rest of that, but nonetheless, you've seen a lot of it. But we're looking forward to our actual feature race here this time around, and hopefully it won't be long before we jump into it. Dan Gilligan, welcome back again. Oh, dearie me, this has been one of those, hasn't it, really? The perfect way to kickstart my very first F1 24 commentary here this evening with Dan Gilligan. But yeah, looking forward to this. Let's talk about this front row then. Elray Guri, but most importantly, Tom 97, back again with the chance to go 2 from 2. 2 races, 2 victories. Do you see it happening, Dan?
It could well happen. I mean, they're certainly in a good position for it. Both drivers, in fact, at the front of the field there. I mean, obviously, you've got that availability to move forwards and control the pace of the race, potentially. You've got everything else that goes on too, that could happen behind. And then, of course, if it does happen behind you, well, of course, you're not going to be involved in that melee. You're not going to be at risk, potentially. So, of course, you do want to have the best race car possible, but the higher you can qualify it up, the better for you. Of course, we've got radio here from Mr. Dale. Saying, I'm 65% sure, it's very specific, that I'll be in a wall before halfway. Well, maybe you should stop doing some sort of domestic work around your house whilst you're racing. And maybe hire a friend to come and help you out with that, so you don't end up in a wall. I mean, that seems like the logical thing to do for me, George. I mean, I don't know about you.
Maybe he's built his rig into the wall, therefore he is in the wall. I'm not sure. Maybe that's how that works.
Maybe he's got a little motor attached to the bottom of the rig, and it's got like so much charge left in the batteries to get the motor moving that's why it's 65% chance. There's only a 65% chance because there's only 65% charge left in the battery. So it'll sort of go and get itself going forward, and then eventually he'll end up in the wall. But will it happen before halfway in the race? That's the thing that we've got to wait and see.
That's the stipulation.
Mr. Dale. Yeah, exactly.
Can
you tell everybody that we're trying to fill time right now? Here we go. Take it away, George.
We have a race, folks. 5 lights are indeed lit. Without any shadow of a doubt, it's pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go. Great start from Tom 97 and El Rey Guri. Tom 97, though, blasting away out in front. He's clear, heading through turn 1. Alex Gillen, though, is going to run wheel to wheel with El Rey Guri. El Rey with enough, yet the Tiger line coming through turn 1. And now Alex Gillen under pressure from the 2 Ferraris, as well as the Mercedes of Noiguera in behind 2 as they now run down through the first sector. It is Tom 97 who leads, but look at this, Infratic. He's going to try and go around the outside of Noiguera. He can't, surely, and leaves the door open for JD Devil Noob, who runs on through. Infratic displaced down to 8th. Devil Noob, I tell you what, he's on fire. He's trying to now pitch himself past Noiguera in a battle for 6. Can't quite find it. The Devil can't speak. He stays behind in 7th place, but it's Tom 97th who leads here at Qatar.
What's better than the Devil you don't know? The Devil you do! And Devil Noob is in 7th place right now. Brilliant start for them. I want to just make a request up to the production room that we get the tyres on screen, because of course without a formation lap, without anything else, we don't get availability to see, and that explains why F1 Scott struggled so much off the start. Hard tyres on their Sauber. Same too for Be Good and for Meraki and for Mr. Dale JE. So those drivers anticipating going long in this first stint, either that's going to be that there is a safety car very early on, or that there's not going to be a safety car at all, and so that will then facilitate them going nice and deep into this race on that set of hard tyres. Whereas those on the mediums, they're going to be going for what is likely the normal optimum race strategy. As we see there, a couple of moves happening in the background. El Rey trying to get themselves past Tom 97 into the first corner, but they're shuffled out, shown the door at the exit there, just run out of road, and that's some good close racing between the pair of them, but no contact made, which is good to see. And as they continue to push on, we go further down the field. We now look at Curb swinging it all the way around the outside of Ricky Rickon. Very, very good move there from them. And then up the inside, potentially, of the Red Bull in the background there is Be Good. But Be Good is not Be Good enough in this case, because they are still down in 12th place and under threat from Guatsum. Has a look up the inside there as well, going into the corner, but doesn't end up getting the move done. And instead, it's now their teammate, Ben Daly, filling their mirrors.
Yeah, GB68 also losing the rear slightly, and Jack Socials has been displaced by Meraki as well. So the Williams now up to 16th place as we now divert to the front end. Rasin Chai in 4th, just 4/10 in behind Alex Gillen, who still remains in 3rd, trying to, well, usher his own way past El Rey Guri at this point. Still the front 2 that were the front 2 at the end of qualifying. Are still the front 2 here at this stage on lap 2 of 57. El Rey, though, has threatened top 97 at the very beginning of this very lap. Wasn't able to do so. You can imagine, though, that this is going to be a case of affairs that will occur regularly, certainly in this opening stint. Tom 97, though, doing enough to ensure his position at the head of the order, but that is going to be put under threat now because of the straight line speed on offer here from the Aston Martin, as in comes El Rey Guri, and he's not alone. He's bringing along Alex Gillen. A double change up at the front end with El Rey now taking the lead. Alex Gillen, the former champion, in 2nd. Tom 97 forced to give way.
And GB's out!
GB's out.
GB's out. I don't know what's ended up happening there. Hopefully we're going to get an update on that from TK in the not too distant future, but GB is out and has left the session. Could that be some starting drama there that has then caused them to just go ahead and quit the game, or has it been an incident somewhere? I'm going to hazard a guess that from the lack of yellow flags, there's not been any sort of retirement on track or anything. I think they have retired in the pit lane, and yes, that is the case. We've got yellow flags now in Sector 1 briefly. I think that's just going to be as a result, that car exiting the pit lane already retired, but yeah, shouldn't cause a safety car there, unless there's something else that we're not aware of. But yep, as it is then, that's GB out the race. Bad day for Aston on the one hand, but on the other, of course, their other driver leads the field.
Yep, certainly does. GB68, remember what he said earlier on? Going to start from the back. Safe away from all the drama. It turns out the drama's found you, my friend, and he's now out of the race. As we now witness the battle up at the front, still, again, going hammer and tongs. Alex Gillen in 2nd this time. Remember, the last lap, he was 3rd, managing to get past Tom 97 as he followed suit from El Rey Guri at the very start of the lap, heading through towards turn 1, managing to get past. He'll now have his own chance at taking the lead. Has also taken the fastest lap, if only briefly, but down the inside comes Tom 97. He's going to try and take the pair as well. 3 wide through turn 1. El Rey Guri is going to try and hang it around the outside, but Tom 97, fabulous move, has dislodged the pair of them and now leads the race once again, as he did on the opening lap.
Okay, we've got an update saying GB had damage. That's the issue that they end up having. Got a replay now of what happened at the start for JD Devil Noob. So this then was a driver who we saw making great moves at the beginning of the race here. There was a bit of a side swipe, it looked like there, from one of the cars to their left. Caused a bit of contact. Up into the first corner, they go. Managed to get themselves past the Alpine, make the move forwards. They've then got Noiguera, they've got the two Ferraris and their teammate just up in front of them, of course. And then it's Infratic here who's going to come under a bit of pressure now, because as they go into the next couple of corners, then they're going to be side by side with Noiguera. They're going to get shuffled out by the Mercedes. Seeing the opportunity, Devil No goes up the inside, but then they've got the overspeed, the confidence on the brakes, get up the inside, knowing Noiguera has just had a fight. They're still aware, they're still giving space to drivers, and then they send it up the inside there, but ultimately, I've got to then stick it in behind for the time being.
Yeah, well, there you have it. That's the view that we have taken from JD Devil Noob. I tell you, one person we can speak to obviously get the insight. First and foremost, we'll just tell you what happens heading down this long straight. We've got some more wheel-to-wheel action. This time, Alex Gillen getting past El Rey Guri. That's second place for Gillen this time around. Let's head across to TK, though, who has an update here from the race start.
Yeah, it was, well, first of all, it was unfortunate for GB. He got damaged from that race start. That's what we're being told. And I think it just put him in a bit of a down mood, unfortunately choosing to retire the car instead of completing the entire 57 laps. So I just want to have a quick moment of your time to talk about Persia. It was a really poor race start from himself. The car just getting all kinds of loose as he tried to get it started. You can see here the back completely kicks out. That V-carb almost sideways, and he's losing positions hand over fist. Little bit of contact there with Recreon, and he's just not the best race restart for himself.
Yeah, not ideal at all. Thank you so much, TK, for that insight. Once again, just look at it. Just not getting the ideal start whatsoever was Pei. We'll rejoin, though, the action as we're seeing it live. Top 97 working hard to break that DRS, but Alex Gillen seemingly determined to maintain it, and the Haas doing enough to stay within proximity of Tom 97. Now, we know what Martinez is like. If he can, in the opening stint, break that DRS, that will, of course, help his cause. But Gillen, who's certainly got plenty of expertise here at this stage, I'm sure is going to try and make sure that does not happen. But still, though, it's Tom out in front in the RB. Alex Gillen hot on his heels in behind El Rey Guri, though, under pressure from Rasin Chai here, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Just tucked in behind the driver we're looking at the moment. So we've got El Rey being rapidly advanced upon by Rasin, but Rasin not close enough into that first corner to be able to have anything to do there. And I must say, Tom 97 is going to be carrying at least one warning at this point now. Coming through that penultimate corner, they had all four wheels off of the circuit. So if the game is operating as it should do and punishing what it should, then that should be one warning at the very least for Tom 97. Of course, we'll wait and see as to whether any more end up coming through. But as it is right now, we've got Alpines both battling with Meraki at this stage. Meraki doing a good job in defense, but I think it's very interesting. We've got these quick drivers who started at the back, the likes of GB, of course, already out the race because of damage. We've then got Ben Daly, and we've got Meraki all the way down the order. He will keep recharging and trying to pull away, says Alex Gillen, of his rival Tom 97. So I imagine Gillen is going to be employing a similar strategy here. Just recharge the car, follow in behind, use the DRS to stick with the car in front, don't burn up your battery, and then when they do go for it, you've then got everything in hand to be able to respond.
Yeah, well, generally, a lot of the cars are running 100% engine braking when it comes to setups, because it allows that battery to be recharged a lot more aggressively. So if you're Tom 97 and Alex Gillen, you can bet your bottom dollar that's exactly what you're going to be running in order to quickly recover that lapse in ERS. And that surely is what Alex talking about. Tom 97, Alex, should I say, backing up my points and saying that Tom 97 is working hard to break that DRS just so Alex Gillen doesn't have that immense straight line speed going down in towards turn one. Of course, while that being the case, while Alex Gillen is within that second gap, it just means it's going to be a constant thorn in the side of the RB driver that currently leads this race. But we'll wait and see as to how that's going to transpire. Alex Gillen fraternising with that 7 to 8 of a second gap as we now watch the two Alpines currently nose to tail. That is Be Good and Safso. Safso, a former champion here in the Creator Series, as I alluded to, Season 1, the OG of champions, coming through the second sector as he now hustles his way down through towards the very tricky left as well, out of turn 8, heading up the hill very shortly, and then it'll be through towards a right-hander to come, as now we see them make their way around on lap 7 of 57. Tim Marduk, who's also been making place on place, starting on the hard tyres, Plenty of them starting on mediums. I should say he's starting on the medium tyre. Sorry, the discolour on my screen kind of fooling me slightly there. But talking about the diversification between the hards and the mediums here, Dan, what would you say is optimal? Obviously, the mediums, you're going to have that decent race pace. But I would say in terms of race tyre, the hard isn't that bad.
Hard historically has not been that bad at all. Sadly, with a lack of experience on this game, I wouldn't be able to tell you anything from personal experience, but certainly right now it looks as though the hard is just not working for the drivers who are using it. It might be something that gives them a good deal of benefit later on, but as we said or as was said in the chat earlier, and Tom97 there saying if Gillen wanted to, we can work together and drop Elray. Well, I mean, that's going to be all the easier now that Elray's been overtaken by Rasen Chai, and Rasen is over a second behind Alex Gillen. Meanwhile, further down the order, we've got Ricky Rickon fighting with Ben Daly here. Ben just managing to scythe that McLaren up, around, and past into P11. And as we then go through the right-hander here into the next part of the circuit, of course, that's now going to be a test of the hard tyres and of Ben here. If they're able to stay within DRS range of curbs for the rest of the lap here, slight lock-up, not helping the case necessarily, into the left-hand hairpin there, then if they're able to stick with, then they should be protected from any potential reprisal. But the problem is, of course, is that these drivers may well end up struggling a bit more the further these things go on. The medium tyre around this circuit, of course, it's going to be a lot of high loads going through that tyre, lots of temperatures rising. If they start to peak on one side of the car, and of course it is an anti-clockwise circuit, this one, then that means that lots of the load is going to be transferred through the left-hand side of the car. Then, yeah, big long corners like this one here in this final corner, which is a bit shorter than elsewhere on the circuit, you're going to have a lot of temperature going through there. That's going to cause potential degradation, not just now, but also later on. Loss of performance now, loss of performance later.
Yeah, could well do. Be Good now receiving a 3-second time penalty. Curbs also getting one. Jack Social's getting a multiple warnings penalty alike. Pay are now past Rakiri Khan, up into 12th for the RB, past the sister Red Bull outfits as well. So there we have it. Already a lot of drama occurring out on track, but in terms of what's happening in amongst the top three, Rasen Chai breaking back to within that second that he was outside of not too long ago. Elray Guri, though, the crucial one, remember, championship leader, 1.2 off the pace against Rasen Chai. Now, could that be the case now that we're moving into lap 9, into lap 10 territory very shortly, that we're seeing an illustration of those medium tyres perhaps decaying at this point in the race?
Possibly. I mean, it's one of these things now where F1 Scott, he's been overtaken by everybody that he started ahead of at this stage. So anybody in front, with the exception, of course, of those cars that started in front of him, everyone's overtaking, everyone's come by. That sounds like a Will Buxton moment, but allow it. But as it is, then F1 Scott, he's been overtaken. There's that big gap that opened up then to Noguera in front. And as it is now, he's been overtaken by his teammate, and he's not been dropped by them. Now, whether that's a deliberate ploy by the Sauber drivers to essentially protect one another and use DRS and so on, or whether that's then just the fact that the hards are now starting to come into a crossover point with the mediums. Of course, in previous games, when you looked at about 25% tyre wear, that's when you see a big drop-off in performance. If that's already happened now for the mediums, but not for the hards, then that is what is going to allow F1 Scott and others to now maintain the gap as it is with those others. Now he's going for a move up the inside in towards turn number 1, but his teammate clearly not obeying any sort of team orders to swap the cars over. They stay very much ahead of the other car for now.
Yeah, but obviously F1 Scott, as far as he's concerned, there's a 3.5-second gap between Devil Noob and Noguera. He's just going to want to get past and try and make as much ground as he can on the back of the Mercedes, but that's very difficult to do when your teammate is not allowing you to do this at all. But of course they will have a long straight to be able to manufacture such an overtake later on. Let's wait and see if they do. Obviously Devil Noob is going to be concerned about Infratic, who's in behind, as well as Matty D13, who is brilliant in the sprint race, and Curbs also being dragged along even though he's got a time penalty. Timoet Marduk has been quietly working his way through the group of cars from the back end of the order as well, moving himself further up now on the cusp of breaking into the top 10. Let's wait and see if he can do that later on as we make our way through on lap 10 of 57. Still a long way to go. Tom97 out in front as now Timoet Marduk challenges Curbs heading through this next right. But just look at this, Curbs sacrificing DRS here at this point as he's now displaced himself even further down from Matty D13 in ninth.
Yeah, he's just been able to now use these last few corners to get himself back into contention here and be able to carry that speed through. Big wide moment from the apex there for Ben. That's going to open the door up to Peya behind. Of course, all these drivers are going to have DRS, so essentially it's like no one having DRS. But with Pay being as close as they are. They could have maybe risked something up the inside there, but they've decided that discretion is the better part of valor and not done it in the end. So all fair play to them. Infratic, meanwhile, has fallen down the order. All of a sudden, or no, they were always behind. Sorry, that's my miscalculation there. So they are close on the back of F1 Scott. Scott still close on the back of JD Devil, but has not overtaken them again. So again, I'm not sure this is necessarily from a team's perspective the best thing that Sauber want to be doing here. From a constructor's standpoint, they might want to be putting Scott back ahead of JD Devil because of course Devil is in this position now where they have got these medium tyres. They're not convincingly pulling away from their teammate. So it might be that in the clean air, Scott is able to pull away, or is at least able to start pulling the average speed of this train up and then starting to catch back towards the top 5. But as it is right now, we simply don't know whether that's the case or not because Scott is still behind. But certainly they are staying with their teammate at this stage. And look at this now, just within a tenth or two at this stage through this part of the circuit as well. So this is really going to position them nicely for the back end of the lap here and on to the beginning of the next lap. Let's stay with this and see whether F1 Scott now is able to get that exit they need out of the final turn. A little bit wide of the apex there for both Saubers, but certainly more so for Devil Noob. Down the start-finish straight we go. DRS has opened up on the back of the Sauber for F1 Scott. They come alongside their teammate JD Devil Noob and onto the brakes into the first turn then. He doesn't cut back across the front of his teammate, but he does take back 6th place. Let's see now what F1 Scott and those hard tyres can do.
Yeah, and bear in mind, when we last saw it, JD Devil Noob, of course, 3.5 seconds back from Noiguera. That, in the next laps or so, then went up to 4.5. Of course, F1 Scott now 5 seconds, obviously just due to the mere fact that he had to make that overtake happen, and now needs to close up to Noiguera. Let's see, as you so rightly say, Dan, how those hards are going to perform to see whether they do bring the pack back closer to the Mercedes of Noiguera. Tom 97, though, still leads. Look at the gap between El Rey and Alex Gillen. That's nearly in the 3-second realm. 2.7 at this stage. Rasin Chai now back in 4th place, has lost the place to El Rey Giri. So those two now becoming detached from our front two leaders. But bear in mind, there is going to be stops that will occur through the course of this race strategically. Is Tom 97 and Alex Gillen, are they better placed in terms of strategy? You would say, based on the time gap, that they might be at this stage. We'll have to wait and see as they now make their way around on lap 12 of 57. It is still the two kit cars in cahoots, 6th and 7th place, with Infratic in 8th as well for Ferrari. Ferrari with both cars in the top 8 right now, with Rasin Chai holding on to 4th. In terms of teams, though, the best performing team right now is the Kit Sauber. They've got both cars within contention, within the top 7,
dear.
but just look at Fabio now. He's going to go down the inside of the pair and take them both. They were sitting ducks. Obviously, the overspeed heading down the long straight. OP at this point, and Infratic unleashing the power of that Ferrari moves himself up into that 6th place.
I can give you a bit of a breakdown on what I think has happened there. I think that Scott, of course, you saw that radio message come up where they said they're just going to keep swapping the cars to be able to get the benefit of the DRS, of course, down the start-finish straight. But I think that what ended up happening there is that they just simply didn't know that Fabio was coming up so quickly on the pair of them. And so they've lifted off to allow their teammate through. But that's then meant that they've offered zero challenge whatsoever to Fabio. They got overtaken much earlier on the straight than you would do in a normal racing situation. So I do think that's a lift off there from F1 Scott that has ended up costing the Saubers both positions. Because ultimately, Devil Noob on the outside then has then been shuffled out Edwards by Fabio. So that's then given the Ferrari driver the ultimate track position, and now, depending on how this lap goes, they could end up getting something else too. We've also got Dale retiring in the pits once again, so a weekend to forget for them. Yeah, a bit of a shame as to all that's happened there. We've also now got allegedly 25% tyre wear on medium tyres on the front left at this stage. So those cars expect to start seeing a little bit of a drop-off through the corners in particular, as we see now this move where Rasin Chai takes away the podium place once again from El Rey Guri.
Yeah, DRS swapping between the Ferrari and the Aston Martin, but it's not prevailing in terms of reducing the time gap between P3 and P2. Alex Gillen still very much in control, as now down the inside goes Tiamat Marduk, who I believe has his own wing damage to deal with. Currently holding on to that 10th place, is broken past curbs, and now in the serious points section of this top 15 classification. Remember, points being distributed across the top 15 places. There's now F1 Scott in P8 closing down on his teammate Devil Noob once again, but still Infratic is a huge lock up there from Devil Noob in the heavy braking zone before then getting back onto the power once again. Still though, the Ferrari hails in P6. The two Kick Sauber cars waiting, though, in the wings for an opportunity to perhaps dislodging him back, and therefore taking both their places back as well as a consequence of that. But Matty D13 further down in 9th, teammate Marduk now on the tail of this bunch, 10th place for the McLaren.
Absolutely. So there we go then. F1 Scott tucked in behind their teammate then. I suspect that the Saubers are going to need to do a position swap here. You can see that Devil Noob is struggling so much more on those tyres now. They're making mistakes left, right and centre, whereas from Scott's point of view on the T-cam of their Sauber, they were just hitting every apex there. There was not a single drama at all for them. You can see here out the final turn, they are so much closer to their teammate than their teammate is to Fabio. I suspect this is going to mean that the Saubers are not going to get Fabio. They could well end up doing it though here as they start to accelerate all the more, but there you can see Devil Noob is making a move to the inside. I think they should have just stayed on the racing line, allowed their teammate to come up the inside and go, because at this stage, Scott's the one with the performance. Scott's the one with the tyres. Scott needs to now stop thinking about the team and be a bit more selfish, I think.
Yeah, I don't think Devil Noob is playing the team game, so if you're Scott, then why would you as well? At the end of the day, he's got to try and force the issue on Devil Noob. The Kick Saubers obviously not in cahoots together, so Scott has got to try and take charge of his own destiny. A mistake, though, from Infratic, running slightly wide. And, yeah, it looked like the Ferrari just getting it slightly wrong. Very heavy onto the brakes. In the meantime, I think we'll throw it across to TK. Can you give us an update, TK?
Yeah, can indeed. Mr. Dale retiring in the pits. He's not having the best of time this afternoon. Obviously 19 seconds off the lead of the pack. He just decided that I don't think he was going to make up any time at all on that lead pack. So into the pits he went and retired from the race. A couple of the drivers maybe expressing their frustrations, not necessarily enjoying this guitar track, but nonetheless, it's been some good racing so far. In terms of F1 Scott and Devil Noob, like you said, it seems like they're on a completely different page from one another. Scott wants to play the team game. Devil Noob, not necessarily in the loop.
Well, there you have it. See, confirmation, really, of what we were discussing, Dan. And alluding as well to some of the drivers. It's the wonders of the Mystery GP as now Rasin Chai brushes past Elray Guri once again, as he has done so on so many occasions. So I'm sure Elray will be looking to answer back very soon. Once again, Devil Noob on the attack of Infratic. He's still struggling, though, Dan.
Yeah, still struggling and still unable to get the job done here. And because there's that extra car length and the extra gap back to their teammate, F1 Scott's not able to get them as well. Jack Social's getting themselves a 3-second time penalty. And so, yeah, F1 Scott, they're the one I feel sorry for at this moment in time, because at this stage, I mean, when they first got the overtake done on their teammate earlier on, and then they had that radio message come through as, oh, yes, well, we play the team game and so on, and blah, 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 blah. At that stage, they were actually gaining time on Noiguera in front, but then as the lap went on, it looked as though they were deliberately keeping their teammate in touch and therefore losing time. I think, again, they just need to get a bit of a move on and just go forwards with it, really. I mean, yes, obviously there would then be the risk that Devil Noob gets overtaken and sent further down the order, but ultimately, if they're not willing to play the team game and say, right, you're clearly the one with the better tyres right now, you get the overtake done, and maybe that will allow me to slip through at the same time, then, yeah, if there's going to be a breakdown in team communication, then it should be a big, proper breakdown in team communication.
Baraki having problems and alluding to it with a little bit of sarcasm as Top 97 takes them through turn one. Alex Gillen not close enough to manufacture an overtake now. The gap between Rasin Chai and Alex Gillen is now stretched to 6.4 seconds. As now we see Devil Noob with a chance here. Scott also with a chance is going to try and overtake his teammate as well as Infratic. He's done it through turn one and in sector one as well.
Whoa!
Collision though. Oh goodness me. Devil Noob coming into contact with Fabio and has lost the car altogether. I mean, if you're F1 Scott, very smart decision to make the move when you did, because surely you would have been collected, and a safety car has been called out onto the track.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating when the safety car gets called because of a car being stationary, but it's still ultimately running. Like, you know, it's one of these things where that it shouldn't necessarily be the case. It should just be the case that we maybe get a virtual safety car to slow the field down, so then they can find that safe place in the traffic to come. Or, if once there are no cars anywhere near them, if they're still stationary or still it's stuck in place on the circuit, maybe then throw a safety car. But as it is right now, all that hard work done by Tom 97, Alex Gillen, Rasin Chai and all the rest, you know, they're now going to end up being completely bunched up with everybody else. And in addition to that, of course, those on the hard tyres, they're the ones who are going to suffer the most through all of this, because what do you do now? You can't go onto mediums and go to the end from here. Whereas those on mediums now, could they maybe risk going onto a hard? I'm not sure. Again, I've not played this game, so I don't have that perspective on being able to tell you how long the tyres will last around this circuit with the new handling model and everything else that goes into it. You can see there, Tom97 almost being overtaken by Alex Gillen into the pits. I mean, yes, it's technically allowed, but, I mean, if you're both going full speed into the pits, why bother? That's not going to do anything for you. So, yeah, just one of those things. But, yeah, as we go on then, that's hard tyres for both and no change in position. So, yeah, El Rey, Racing likely both going to be in, and they are, but Racing, oddly enough, going onto a set of mediums at this stage. So, medium for Racing Chai. Interesting strategy call there from them. And F1 Scott then comes into the pits, gets themselves serviced with another set of hard tyres.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
The entire grid, softs actually being put on Infratic's car, so an interesting call on his part as the Ferrari team go to work. But in the meantime, as all the cars come in...
Hang on, George, hang on, sorry. I've got someone daring to question my my knowledge of the rules here in Formula 1. Technically allowed? I mean, not really, says concept creator. Well, actually, the pit lane entry is not part of the circuit, so yellow flags do not apply. Think back to Sebastian Vettel many years ago. They overtook cars on the entry to the pit lane in China. So it is very much allowed. But in that instance where you're both travelling at full speed and they're not cars tiptoeing into the pits, that's then where it's not really worth attempting. Sorry, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dan Gilligan. Now, as all the cars have come in and made their changes, over to TK for some news.
Indeed, and Dan, I stand with you. You're exactly correct, as you always are with the rules of Formula 1. But
Thank you, darling. I'll say nice things about you later on.
Lovely, thank you very much. Heading down the start-finish, obviously we saw the collision between Infratic and JD Devil Noob. I'm just going to bring you back just a couple of moments. We'll ride on board with Infratic first as the clip just catches itself up ever so slightly. He's looking back, looking as both Saubers move to the inside to get the overtake done. Scott with a great speed than JD as they go around the right-hander. They're both going through quite nicely side by side, and a massive flick there by JD. It looks like he just loses the car, and unfortunately a bit of front wing damage and some significant tyre damage for Infratic as well. We can hop over to JD's point of view as well as they run down the start-finish straight again. He can see he's actually got Scott behind him at this moment in time. This shows how much of a leap that F1's got with that straight line speed, the DRS and the slipstream effect as well. They went 3 wide past the pit exit there, and F1 Scott's in the lead. Down side by side they go through the right-hander, and you can see here JD just loses the car, and it's a massive Scandinavian flick into the Ferrari of Infratic.
Yeah, obviously a reprieve though for Infratic, given that we've got the safety car so we can get that wing change. So there we go. Thank you so much, TK, for that. And also, we've got to talk about, in terms of wing damage, Tim Marduk getting his wing changed and therefore only losing 4 places in an instance. Now, if you compare to where he was at the race start, he still has effectively gained places on the opening stint, so it's certainly not over yet for Tim Marduk. Bit of a change of pace now, and we have a look at the top 2, Tom97 and Alex Gillen, who are busy trying to marshal a gap. That advantage has disappeared now, Dan Gilligan. Opportunities now to Racing Chai, El Rey Guri, Noiguera, everyone now on this grid, and maybe another hat tip to F1 Scott, who's got a great chance at attacking these front runners.
He does, but this is, and it's one of these things where the earlier running this race will now benefit him, because he's been on the hard tyres all race long. He knows how they work, he knows how they operate, he knows how much grip they're going to be able to give them. So that's going to give them a little bit of requisite experience to then go after everybody else at this early stage. But as well as that, they've got Matty D behind them, and Matty D, of course, is no stranger to going for the move, particularly on a restart. So it's all going to be about how good of a launch you get out that final turn, of course, and then how well you're able to drive down into turn number 1. And then, of course, it's going to come down to how it happens for those ahead of you as well, because if they have a terrible start, then you could end up getting all bunched up, where you actually would have been in a great position, but otherwise now, because you've been checked up in the final corner, whatever it happens to be, then you end up losing out as a result of that. So it's a difficult place to be in right now. I'd say that of all the drivers up in that sort of top 5, top 6 sort of area, Racing Chai is going to be the one on the charge now. They're the ones with the fresh medium tyres. Everybody else around them on hards, and that's going to give them a great deal of extra purchase.
Yeah, we've got confirmation as well, the safety car in this lap, folks. So Tom97 will be taking control of the pace. You'll be in charge of the Delta as they make their way up through towards the final corners on this very lap 19 of 57. As you can just see, just getting those tyres to work. He needs to aggressively work them in order to make sure that they are within the window required. Remember that all the drivers now on fresh compounds of tyre, heading through now towards turn 16. It's going to come down to him to try and usher in himself, leading the race, coming out of turn 1. And now, as they make their way out towards the line, it's pedal to the metal for the second time in this race now. And Tom 97 getting a lovely launch. Alex Gillen unable to find any momentum to challenge. We've got some wheel-to-wheel stuff now happening between Matty D13 and F1 Scott. Matty hanging it around the outside at turn 1 as the Haas looks to try and challenge the Kick Sauber. Has it managed to get past? I think it might have. It certainly has. And enter Curbs into the fight too. The Williams running wheel-to-wheel with F1 Scott coming through sector 1 in towards sector 2, and those in front for the team from Grove. But can they hold on as they still run wheel-to-wheel still? Coming through sector 2 this time. Curbs with the overspeed. He'll have the Tiger line through the next left-hander, and he's got the job done. Scott losing 2 places and the race restart.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a bit of a shame for them, but of course, partly predictable there. You've got Curbs on the medium tyres. They have that extra grip available underneath them. You've got Infratic here in the middle of that pack too, just tucked up behind their former team. Whoa, behind their former teammate. Now have gone to the side of their former teammate with a far too ambitious move. There's been something else that's happened there from all the cars who've come through, not knowing where to go, with Fabio sitting sideways on the circuit there. So yeah, that was a rapid arrival and a rapid disassembly on the circuit for an awful lot of cars. Safso gets a 3-second time penalty there, and all manner of things have just happened, and I suspect we're going to see an awful lot of replays of that in the not too distant future. DRS has been enabled, of course. They won't have it down the start-finish straight this time. The detection point is too far back, so it'll be the next lap down the start-finish straight is when we'll start to see DRS actually being used, even if it is available now. Ben, though, up to P10, manages to gather up another place, this time from Ricky Riccon, as Noiguera moves up ahead of Matty D, and then back behind Matty D, the two of them fighting for 5th place. Meanwhile, the Haas is now close onto the back of El Rey Yuri, and Rasin Chai has already managed to make good short work of Alex Gillen, and is now tucked up behind Tom 97 as well.
Yeah, certainly has done. Matty having a great race as well. Haas now currently sat 3rd and 5th, which is great for them. Noiguera jumping ahead of Curbs, has managed to get his Mercedes in front of the Williams. Can he hold on to it, though? That's the big question. Curbs is trying to get it back, and he might yet get it as well. A little bit of a slippy moment from Noiguera, who is at risk of potentially losing the place. Curbs, though, I like this aggressive nature.
Get in there, Curbs!
A fantastic move from Curbs in the Williams, and has taken the place back, proving that he's no longer the punching bag for the rest of the drivers on the grid. He's come back like a phoenix from the ashes and has taken back the place away from Noiguera, who is now down in 7th.
Absolutely brilliant few moves that we've been seeing from Curbs, albeit, yes, they've got that extra grip available, but you've still got to have the bravery to go all the way around the outside of not 1, but 2 drivers. And so, yeah, very, very brave indeed. But down the start-finish straight, it's going to be maybe a bit less brave and a bit more procedural now for Rasin Chai, as on the medium tyres with DRS, they go by Tom 97 at the head of the field and disappear. Now Noiguera has gotten themselves back ahead of Curbs here, and Curbs now having to defend from F1 Scott. We're now seeing the pit building instead of, there we go, now we can see the cars once again. He manages to shuffle F1 Scott out to the outside, onto the dirty stuff, onto the marbles, everything else, and that then means that he's now able to hold on track at least to P7 in the meantime. But for the penalties they currently have, that would send Curbs far down the order if it were to finish with the timing gaps we've got right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's been a busy race for Curbs. He's had six seconds of time penalties. Hasn't been a great day for Williams. Unfortunately, Meraki has just sustained underbody damage. That is the latest news. F1's got these medium guys are fast. We'll have our time later. So obviously a very methodical mindset on Scott's behalf. And I know that's the type of thing we've come to expect from someone like Scott. But in the meantime, as we digest all this, let's head across to TK. TK, what's the latest?
It was certainly an interesting instant. We've got a couple of POVs for you to take in and enjoy here. We'll watch Fabio's first. He's just riding on the coattails here of TM McMardick, and it's an opportunistic move that might have just gone a little bit wrong. He dives down the inside to the left-hander, very, very late on the brakes indeed, and round he spins that Ferrari. Lots of other cars getting involved as well. As we mentioned earlier, Meraki getting underbody damage from that collision earlier. We can go and have a look very quickly at Safso's POV as well. He's just behind the Ferrari and the McLaren respectively. You can watch here. It's an audacious dive by Infratic, but this time around just didn't quite work out. And you saw on the left-hand side there, Meraki just clipping the car for that underbody and a bit of wing damage to boot as well.
Yeah, true drama, has to be said. Thank you so much, TK, for that insight, as you so readily provide. And I must say, what a race we have had. Racing China leads this race, and if you'd asked us back at the opening stints, you would have said, are you crazy? No, well, after the safety car, it's given him a refreshed opportunity at taking this race by storm. Rikirikon, though, unfortunately, having a moment. 3 seconds of time penalties now being forwarded to him. Matty D13 still remaining in 5th, though, in behind El Rey Guri. DRS, though, in amongst the top 5. So a very different scene to what we had prior to the first pit stop and the safety car. It's now the top 5 that are all within DRS detection of one another, with Curbs now beyond 2 seconds behind Matty D, with Noiguera trying to close up to his rear, but Curbs managing to deal with him fairly well at this point. Alex Gillen still trying to give chase. Tom 97 down in second. Has actually lost DRS to Racing China. That's a concern, and that will open the door for Alex Gillen, who's going to run wheel to wheel. A little moment for Tom 97 as well. A lack of grip, a little twitch from the car, but is that him trying to get DRS for the long straight? Let's wait and see. Is they now rush down? No, he doesn't get it. So now he's fodder for El Rey Guri in behind.
So Tom has disconnected, apparently. That is what we're being told in our behind-the-scenes chat here. Noiguera has been overtaken by F1 Scott. Does that manage to be held, though? Is that going to be a move that sticks? It will be. Well done to Scott to get that move done. Just going back a little bit here, George. I mean, we had that look at the replays, of course, from Fabio getting up the inside and getting it all wrong. It was described by TK perhaps a bit generously, in my opinion, as an audacious move. I would have a way of describing it. I think it was stupid. I think it was silly. I think it was one of these things where I'm sorry if any of Fabio's fans are in the chat right now, but Fabio is not usually a driver that I would attribute that particular word to. But when you've got your driver in front that you're trying to overtake, and they've sort of hung that car a little bit further around the corner than you normally would to deliberately defend from you, you can't then just sort of wait until they get out of the way, then go for the move you plan to go for about 50 meters back, because then that's exactly what happens. They came into that corner way too quick.
Yeah, I think just misjudging it. I think at that point, that's for sure, and now he's paid the price. I think without any doubt. His teammate, though, not doing a bad job. Now 1.3 away. Alex Gillen did break to within DRS for a split second, but has now seen himself move on outwards from it. Meraki having a really difficult race, it has to be said. Has got that underbody damage and is paying the price as a result of that too. 15th on his part for the Williams driver, as now we see Matty D13, who's had a great drive again. This time in the feature race, he's gone down the inside of El Rey Guri and moves up into third. Haas in second and third here at the Losail circuit, the Qatar Grand Prix. And it's going their way right now. Well, the only place they have yet to gain is first at this point now, with Racing Chai still in charge of that. But Matty D13 putting himself in the equation, could yet grab a podium.
Absolutely, could do. And it's looking very good at this stage for a lot of those drivers further up the field. Right now, Matty D looking particularly impressive. I wonder if, when we take a look at the tyres here, what tyre set they're on at the moment in time. And yes, it is medium tyres. So that is what helped them to get them into the position that they're in right now. Of course, all the drivers are still, reasonably quick enough to be able to find themselves in that place regardless of the tyre choice. But of course, that extra grip that comes, we've already seen it be put to good work by Racing Chai at the front of the field, getting ahead and then breaking the DRS to those cars behind. We've got Devil New now with another 3-second time penalty for going over the track limits, as we continue to watch the Williams of Curbs stuck to the back of Tom 97's AI at this stage. And you can tell it's an AI because it's now 2.8 seconds, 2.9 seconds back from the cars in front, and it's about to be overtaken by not one, but 2 cars down this start-finish straight. First comes Curbs, then will come F1 Scott. And as they go down to turn number 1, is there enough there in the tank for F1 Scott to get the move done a second time? No, not on this occasion.
No, not this time. El Rey Guri also getting past Matty D13 for that 3rd place. So yet another place game for the Aston Martin. Moves Matty outside of the podium. Curbs now up to 5th, 2.7 away from Matty. Tom 97 has rejoined the race, but is in somewhat of a disadvantage now because Curbs, like I said, 2.6 off the top 4. Which means, as a consequence, Tom 97 losing those places that he has done, despite retaking control, has now got quite the work at hand in order to try and gain those places or that time back. Speaking of time lost, Alex Gillen now back outside of a second. He's trying to get himself back within, but it's proving to be a bit tricky. Matty D13 mission, hold up everyone, is a go. So Matty's plan clearly on display. Get to work on those medium tyres and then try and hold them back for as long as possible, I suppose, to aid Alex Gillen.
You would imagine that would be the reasoning behind it, yeah. And if they're able to get themselves back ahead of El Rey before they do that, then they can, of course, start to remove just one more threat from their teammate, potentially. But as it is right now, I mean, that would essentially return us back to the status quo of earlier on, with the race leader and the second place car out in front, separated by not very much, whilst then the gap to the cars behind just increases and increases over time. As it is, though, down the start-finish straight, here goes Team Marduk. They get by the V-carb of Tom97, their AI desperately trying to defend as now 2 more cars come by. That's 3 positions lost down the single start-finish straight. And that then is going to be absolute bedlam for Tom97 if they do manage to rejoin. And we're now being told that he cannot take control. So, unfortunately, a bug from the previous game has reared its ugly head, I should say. And it sort of makes me wonder why we don't have these things fixed from one title to another. But as it is, we've got that effectively as Tom97 out of the race. Then if they were to rejoin again now, then if it's like the last game, it will end up retiring their car. Now they've left the session. So that is Tom97 out of the Qatar Grand Prix in all but name.
Yeah, 30 laps to go now in this race. And apparently Tom has given up. No surprise, he can't get back in the car. Then obviously what's the point in continuing? Tom97, many would have touted him the favourite after taking pole for this very race. Looked in rude health, given the fact that he's coming off the back of a success in round 2. But it's not to be this time around, and we could yet get a new winner this season. Of course, Rasin Chai, his best result so far this season, being back at, well, certainly at our last round in round 2, managing to scoop up 14 points, as now we see Matty D13 retake that 3rd place. Now the plan resumes as far as he's concerned. F1 Scott down the inside of Curbs as well, moves up to P5, and he's on those hard tyres, so his tyres probably just about to come into the window where they will be at their optimal performance, because I get the feeling that those on the mediums are going to be starting to feel the frailties just a little bit.
Just a little bit, and of course, you know, if we bring up those tyres once again, the first stint, I believe we were around about 16 laps worth of tyre wear, so for those who are running around right now, they should be fine for the time being at least, but it's when we get to around that sort of 15 laps worth of use on the tyre are concerned, that's then where those mediums might start to struggle more relative to the hards, and certainly for those like Rasin Chai, for Matty D and so on, I think that their plans are going to end up coming unstuck as a result. You know, for Matty D in particular, you know, if your tyres are going to start losing grip, Tom97 has now rejoined again. Well, it's not retired his car this time, so let's see whether he can take control or not. We'll wait and see. But, yeah, as I say, for those on those mediums then, you know, you've got Rasin at the head of the field. He's only just being able to keep Rasin out, Alex outside of DRS range, or just inside of it. So that means that he's not really getting the benefit of those mediums. If anything, he's just transferring the benefit of those mediums to the car behind, who's able to stick with him with DRS and so on, and then be dragged along at that extra high speed. You can see Curbs now getting back ahead of F1 Scott. This is a pendulum that keeps swinging one way and the other, as we've been seeing with Matty D and El Rey Guri, because of that crossover we're starting to get towards now with the medium tyres. And we are now being told, apparently, miraculously, Tom has control.
There we have it, Tom97 back in the game, back in the car. Let's see what he can dig up, because we still have a fair portion of this race still to go. Still opportunities on the table, pit stops to be made. You never know. We have had late safety cars in the past. We look back to our season finale last season in that dramatic fight between Team Marduk and M-Sky-Z. That very late safety car, meaning that all the cars were bunched up and we had a title fight coming in at the very end, and you never know, there could be one on offer to help Tom97 this time. Let's wait and see. I think their tyres are better now, says Infratic. So there we go, the soft tyres coming undone, and well and truly you could argue Infratic's strategy has been undone. Certainly hasn't been an easy day for his Ferrari. His teammates, however, though, does lead this race and has a good, decent 4.2 second cushion between he and El Rey Guri, not to mention, well, I suppose you could argue it's a little bit more than that. 4.7 in between he and El Rey Guri. Only Alex Gillen is in proximity as they now head down the straight once again. Curbs now ushering his way down through towards the pit lane side. trying to negate F1 Scott's efforts of getting within the aero to make moves. Teammate Marduk now going wheel to wheel with Scott as they now head in towards turn 1, out of turn 1 in towards turn 2. Scott doing enough though, defiant in the face of danger, but the man in Papaya is going to take the place. He's up to 6, and the reigning champion now chasing after curves, but Scott is going to make him work for it as they head into the next right. Benjamin Daly doing enough to hold on to 6.
Absolutely, yeah, some great battling by Scott that we've seen today. I can't help but feel he's maybe needs to get his elbows out a little bit more. He's always very respectful when he races, and these are drivers that he said before in commentary with us last season, for example. These are the creators that they would sort of look up to within the F1 gaming space, and now they get to race with them and interact with them and so on. It's all very exciting, but I think it's one of these things where maybe they need to start kind of bullying some of their, for lack of a better word, heroes, shall we say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I respect, F1 Scott's, his track nature, of course, just by his very nature as a human being, obviously fairly, he's a very kind person, perhaps too kind, like you so rightly say, out on track, but still nonetheless, I mean, I've been very impressed with his performance so far, and I think what you can quite rightly say about him is that everything that he has grasped here on this occasion has been from his outright pace, which I think can only be admired. But Teammate Marduk back again, and I will say this, Benjamin Daly on hard tyres, bear in mind where he started outside of the top 10, has now found himself in a brilliant position in the top 6 and might yet challenge the front end leaders as now Zafso brushes past Rikirikon and takes that 11th place away from the Red Bull driver. Infratic on the tail of all these as well is going to really find it difficult to try and maintain any sort of advantage given the fact that he is on soft tyres as we now rejoin El Rey in 3rd place, riding on board with the Aston Martin. 4 seconds to find on Alex Gillen in 2nd, who has done a great job of bringing that gap to within 4/10 between he and Rasin Shine.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very good indeed. And so this then will be that crossover in the tyres. We last looked at them when they were 10 laps old on lap 28. Now, of course, we've got those few laps extra on board, and that's then going to give them all that extra wear and tear. And so, as we were saying, it's around about that sort of lap 14, 15 stage within the stint. That's then when you're going to start feeling a bit of a drop-off. Now, of course, it's not the be-all, end-all. The hards will eventually hit that 25% drop-off point as well, and then they should see a big dip in performance that then begins to equalize the pair of them again. But certainly right now, for the stage of tyre wear these guys have got, I would want to be on a set of hards, not on mediums.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, and this is one of those drivers that is on the hards. Teammate Marduk heading down the long straight will also get the benefits of DRS on curbs. Surely is going to make the move. The flashing on the back of the Williams suggesting a recharge on offer for curbs right now, and Teammate Marduk sweeping P5 away. And the McLaren in the familiar papaya colours now has 3.6 seconds to find on Matty D13, who's on mediums, so could yet be a late twist. And speaking of twist, Rikirikon having one of his own heading through the first sector, or should I say Safso having one of those in the first sector. Rikirikon just getting himself out of the way of that immediate danger, down in 12th place.
Absolutely, yeah. Safso giving us his best impression of the Dancing Queen there from ABBA. So
Become dancing.
So, well, exactly. Yeah, very, very good. The Frozen show on ice, for example. Other things that we could say. The can. I'd love to see Safso doing the can. That would be great.
But Qatar.
Exactly. There we go. Social media, get on it. But let's listen into some radio then for Tom 97. He says, "Let's get to work."
Well, you can only praise that attitude, can't you? I mean,
you can. He's done well so far. He's gained 2 seconds on his teammates since he rejoined, but he's not gaining any places just yet. So, frankly, I think he's slacking. He needs to work harder.
Yeah, it's the kind of attitude that we would like to see from Jake, but we never get to see it, unfortunately. As we now see Alex Gillen coming through turn 1 once again on the tail of Rasin Shine. We're going to see a move, though, for P5. Teammate Marduk losing out to curbs. And in behind, F1 Scott looking for his own opportunity to try and brush, or certainly go side by side with Benjamin Daly. Can't quite achieve it this time around. Scott, bear in mind, does have 3 seconds of time penalties. Teammate Marduk doesn't have any right now. The kick sable once again flittering all over the rear of the McLaren. It's holding on to P6, but unfortunately for Scott, unable to find the momentum to get that move done. Ben Daly will, of course, have his chance should he stay behind curbs to get DRS again down the home stretch. But if Scott has provided an opportunity, could yet jump past the McLaren and take that P6 right away from him.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that right now, Ben is looking particularly powerful at this stage, you must say, in terms of what their car is capable of doing underneath them. But it was a bit of a shock, really, that they've not been able to drop curbs. It's nothing against curbs, really. It's just that, of course, in times gone by, we look at the history of their time in the series. They've never really been in that sort of top-end fight, and yet Ben Daly pretty much always has been. So the fact that they have been able to stick with him a whole lap and then overtake him and then stay ahead of him for this entire lap as well, it's all very, very good. I'm not slow. I'm just charging the battery, says Ben. So what's that? Is that a racing driver excuse we're seeing there, George?
It could well be. So there we have it. Benjamin Daly refusing to give anything away right now. We've got some movement further back. Just look at this, side by side, coming through turn one. Tim Mardick managing to get the place back off curb. Scott trying to wrestle his way past the Williams. Tom 97, who is back in the car, has managed to get past Noiguera as well. And now Tom 97 is going to go on the attack of F1 Scott coming through the next right. They're going to try and run wheel to wheel. Scott, bear in mind, in jeopardy, and now being chased along by Tom 97, who is on the hard tyres that will, of course, outlast a lot of those that are on the mediums already. Let's wait and see. Tom 97 has already ushered in the new fastest lap of the race. Noiguera going wheel to wheel with the fellow RB of Paya in behind. They're still going to go side by side, coming through sector 3, but Noiguera shows him off, certainly shows him out wide, and maintains P9.
Yeah, some good, great action happening up and down the field here with some close battles, with a change in the lead, of course, with Alex Gillen at the top now, with Rasin Chai tucked in behind, El Rey in third place. So if it were to end like this, they maintain their podium 100% rate so far this season. And Matty D doing a great job to actually stick with El Rey at this stage and be several seconds ahead of Ben Daly. But as time goes on, Ben is beginning to catch up to those in front, not by very much, and certainly down the DRS straight, they're going to be losing time rather than gaining it. And as they come down towards number one, once again, Curbs is going to be able to get themselves into position to overtake, but it's only going to be Curbs, as tucked in behind then, Tom 97 is going to have a bit of a think about it, but they're not going to be close enough to get that done this time.
Well, Tom 97's pace is electric right now. He's managed to gain places on Noiguera, and Scott very nearly going into the back of Tim Mardick, however, and is now going to try the inside line against the McLaren, but this time around decides against it. Probably the more sensible option, it has to be said. Jack Socials with a 3-second time penalty as well this time around. Tim Mardick in 6th place. For how much longer? Huge twist to the wheel from Tom 97 to try and rescue the car, but maybe an illustration as to how much he is really pushing right now. And here we go, a little bit sweaty in here, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there are many ways we could get around the sweat of Creator Series as it has become these days. I think, for instance, that we should be attaching electrodes to the drivers, and we do a poll in chat, and then chat votes on who they want to be electrocuted.
Good Lord. Every new subscriber gets a go.
Exactly.
Yeah, truly brilliant. Sensational. Alex Gillen still leads the race after overtaking Rasin Chai. We'll make that happen, folks, so stay tuned. As now Rasin Chai retakes the lead of the race now off Alex Gillen, heading through on lap 36 of 57, heading through towards turn 1. Tom 97 now going wheel to wheel with Tim Mardick this time around, and has managed to take P5 away. So, I mean, say what you want about Tom 97. We all know how brilliant he truly is, but, I mean, to come back after being...
Curbs gone. Sorry, I'm just curious. We've just come to that battle.
He's
in the pits.
He's just changed onto hards. That is a new change. So, is he one of the first to jump off the mediums onto the hard tyres?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I mean, let's take a look. Yes, he is. And he's not even gone on to... no, sorry, that's Infratic who's gone on to mediums behind him. So, Infratic is just having a mare of a day strategy-wise. But, yeah, Curbs then. A brand new set of hard tyres to be able to go, I would imagine, to the end of this race on those. So we'll wait and see then. Apparently, according to the chat earlier on, the undercut is very, very powerful in the game. So if you are going to be making one more stop before the end for those who are currently on hards, then that could potentially see a big gap ceded to Curbs. And then, of course, if not, he's got to just pull back all of that again. We've got a yellow flag in the second sector. We've got no idea just yet as to what has caused it, but it's gone now. So ultimately, it's just a slight interruption to proceedings, and as it is, then we continue on.
Yeah, Alex Gillen leads the race because Racing Chai has come into the pit. So El Rey now moves up to second, Matty D into third. Hard tyres have been placed on Racing Chai's car, so he's bailed off those mediums. The mediums obviously coming to an end. So now's the time for the hards to strike. Let's wait and see what will happen in terms of strategy. Will anyone else respond? Tibet Marduk, as you can see, chasing after Tom 97. We're currently watching as well Zafso holding P9 ahead of Racing Chai, who's just come out behind him. Now, you do wonder whether this will lead to those currently sat in P5, 6, 7, and 8, maybe boxing now here, Dan, to try and, to almost try and negate the undercut.
Oh!
Oh, Racing! That's on
No, they won't
tyres.
be. They won't be.
No, they won't have to. It immediately destroyed my point. I was just about to say that they would come into the pits, obviously negate the undercut that Racing would have brought to the table. They don't necessarily need to worry about that now.
No, they don't, but that's only if, of course, they've got the track map on or they've got a particularly receptive audience who are telling them what's going on, because otherwise they don't have a single clue. They're going to be keeping on going. They might take that risk, that gamble, and then it turn out that actually it wasn't needed at all. But that's the thing now. To the end of the race, it's going to be a much tougher drive now for Racing. I'd say that's off the podium even. With what's just happened there for them. I mean, yes, Tom 97 is still some distance away from the podium, and we've got Matty D, who's likely going to need another stop again, but I think that is, that's certainly something which we are going to be ending up seeing now, is the narrative now, not whether Racing can win, but whether they can even get a podium in this race. As we see now, Matty D into the pits. No notification of that on the left-hand side of the screen, of course, but we can gather that from the fact that everyone has gone past him whilst they've been on the start-finish straight. And so, that's them into the pits. Then let's see where they come out relative to Racing, because, of course, that's going to be the big test now, as to whether or not Racing even manages to get by Matty D, who, of course, have been well behind them at that stage. And no, they're not going to get by, as out the pits comes Matty D 13. So that gives you some idea of the sense of scope there, amount of time lost. So he's gone from being in a potentially winning position with Alex Gillen to now behind the driver who was a second behind El Rey Guri, who is 6 seconds behind Alex Gillen. So he's at 7 seconds behind where he had been previously.
Yep, 7 seconds is absolutely spot on, and that means that Racing Chai, as you so rightly say, forfeiting the podium at this point. But you never know. Obviously, he's already boxed. There's going to be others that are going to be considering boxing as well. In the meantime, let's digest this with TK. TK, what's happening?
Yep, you were exactly right. Razin came out of the pits on fresh tyres. We can watch on board here. He's navigating the first couple of corners rather successfully. It's this left-hander, unfortunately, that catches him out. I think he just touches the curb ever so slightly. The rear end steps out, and round that Ferrari goes. Fortunately, though, he keeps it out the barrier, although a little bit of a questionable rejoin onto the track. Fortunate that to get out of the way of Devil Noob as he goes flying past there.
Yeah, could have well been the safety car that a few of the drivers were looking for. I'd imagine, especially if you're Tom 97. Thank you, TK, for that. Oh, now that was JD Devil Noob in the background who clattered into the boards. Looked like he lost the car altogether. And there was me talking about safety cars. We could have yet had a commentator's curse at that very point. But Alex Gillen leads the way. 5.9 seconds to the good ahead of El Rey Guri. And of note as well, remember, Racing Chai was the only other driver that was essentially challenging him for that race lead. But now that leaves Alex Gillen in the clear right now, Dan.
It certainly does, absolutely. And I think that, you know, for the pace they've exhibited here today, I don't think that anybody is really going to be able to challenge now between now and the end of the race, unless there is a safety car. But we've got everything else going on here. We've got this fight now between Matidi and Racing, but I would suspect that of the two, Racing's the one who's going to come out on top. I think it's just one of these really unfortunate things. It's sort of one of these what might have beens for us in terms of these two, because, or certainly in terms of Racing, because, you know, they should be 7 seconds up the road now. They should be 3 seconds away from Safso, so essentially ahead of them on time penalties, and then get that move done, get moving on up the order, and so on. It's a real shame for what's ended up happening to Razin here, but it is entirely of their own making. But fun, interesting fact for you. This has actually been perfectly recreated in this year's game. In Qatar, they actually put a large amount of ceremonial grease on that particular curb, because obviously that's what happens when Formula 1 cars touch a curb. They just immediately get spat off.
Yeah, well, there you go. I tell you what, did you know that at home? I bet you didn't. So they have it. Maybe that's a ceremonial grease that has led to Razin losing the car altogether. We'll never know. But we've just got word from Dirk Chocolate, our producer in the air right now, as we see Matty D13 all over the back of Racing Chai, not content with making the move. Dirk has come out with a producer bet, Curbs to come through with a stormer of an undercut. Can you see that happening, Dan?
Say again, sorry.
Well, I'm just saying that Dirk Chocolate, you know, our good friend and producer, has suggested that Curbs is going to come down or come through with a stormer of an undercut. That's his prediction.
That's his prediction. Well, I mean, as it is right now, Curbs, I think it all depends really upon whether or not those on the hard tyres that he was fighting with at the time he came in are going to pit again. If they do, then I would absolutely agree. It's going to be an absolute barnstormer of a thing. But as it is right now, if they just stay out and manage to coast their hard tyres to the end here and get decent scores, decent points, then actually I think we could end up seeing him finishing much further down the order than he would have planned to with that move. But yeah, it's all still to play for. There's still plenty of time. Of course, if you're going to go onto a set of medium tyres, for example, to the end, we've seen that about 15 laps is comfortable enough on those tyres around this circuit before you start to get into major tyre trouble. So it could be that in the next couple of laps we start to see that changing. But then, yeah, we've got now Tom gone once again, and well, yeah, that's a big old shame for them. That means they're undoubtedly going to lose that place now to Ben Daly. Ben, who's actually had a storming race, I must say, in terms of driver of the day candidate, Ben Daly has got to be up there for me, because they've come from as far down as they did. I mean, let's just see the position change to be able to see that. But oh dear, 10-second time penalty for speed in the pit lane from Meraki, and he's also retired from the race. That's a bit of a rage quit there then, I assume. To be fair to Jake, he stuck out for a long old time with what I believe was mentioned earlier on was floor damage. Yeah, Ben then is now going to be held up by Tom 97's car here. He's going to need to just get the move done and disappear off the distance as quickly as possible. I think I understand the logic here is he's staying in behind to get the benefit of DRS down the start finish straight to try and optimize lap time that way. But I think that all the time he's lost through the corners here on this lap is far greater than anything he's going to gain down the start finish straight. Here we go though, through the final turn. He's gone sideways, so that's initially going to lose him time. Before now, he pulls up alongside and past the AI-driven V car.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. And now on the podium, he's got one hand on P3. F1 Scott now going wheel to wheel with Noiguera through turn one, and the Mercedes defiantly trying to get past that Kick Sauber car. They're going to run wheel to wheel through the first sector again. Scott now reneging, but ultimately trying the switchback, trying to make the long way around through the outside, through the next right-hander. And yes, you're absolutely right. What happened there? Could not quite see what had occurred. I'm trying to see on track whether that car has become visible again, but Scott foregoing that place to Noiguera. Now, what I do want to say, Timit Marduk now in third place. He's got two cars in front of him in the championship, GB68 and Meraki. Bear in mind, both retiring. So should Timit Marduk stay like this, he should take third in the championship.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a close battle. We've got team ready for Meraki. It is what it is. Game's the game. And that's it, I'm afraid. It's pointed out in the chat that that's Meraki's AI that we saw pulling off to one side earlier on, so it must have made it all the way down the pit lane and back out onto the circuit before it was despawned. So there we go. That would be the reasoning behind all of that. But yeah, it is a shame. I mean, it is a shame right now. We, of course, want the game to be perfect, but right now it's not. Of course, Codemasters are working on it as much as they can. But yeah, it's maybe not quite in the position that the creators would have liked it to be.
No, not at all. We now once again have a duel happening. Oh, wow. Hey, car of Tom 97 right in between. They're going to go three wide, heading through towards turn one. Noiguera and F1 Scott both unseated by Peng.
Oh!
Noiguera very nearly losing the car altogether, but somehow, some way, keeps his car ahead of F1 Scott here at this point as we run on board with Tom 97's AI. F1 Scott now in sixth. Noiguera is somehow keeping Scott behind despite the tail snapping on that Mercedes.
I think it's all going to end up coming up tiers for Noiguera though later on, because the more they do stuff like that, the more heat they're going to put through those tyres, the more wear they're going to end up getting as well. And so that then means that it's just going to end up resulting in more and more problems for them, which will then compound with an overall loss in grip later on. As well as that, look here from the perspective of Tom 97's AI. There's a flashing red light on the back of one of these two cars in front, and it's not F1 Scott.
No, not at all. He's managed his race brilliantly, despite the 3-second time penalty, which I'm sure will, should it stay like this, it will drop him down through the order. Only past F1, only past Tom 97 though, because Safso is 10.4, 10.5, 10.6 now, in behind Tom 97's car out on track. So if F1 Scott plays his cards right, P6 could be his worst result, which isn't a bad day at the office, really, Dan.
No, not at all, not at all, indeed. And of course, you know, the better results you get, the better confidence you get. And then, of course, confidence can be such an important factor in how competitive you can be in any sport. So, you know, in esports here, I mean, obviously we're not F1 esports or anything like that, but, you know, in the context of racing competitively with others virtually, esports in that sense, you know, the good results that you can get in means that you can then, of course, go on to even greater things. There is the old saying that when you accomplish small things, you can achieve great things more safely. And so that is very much the case when you start to build up your results in a sport like this. Tom 97 has rejoined. We will wait to hear whether or not they're actually able to regain control of their car in addition to getting back into the game.
Yeah, and obviously he's now 1.4 off the back of F1 Scott, so we're looking to retake the seat. Still big points on offer for Tom 97 here, so obviously we'll look to try and finish his race as best he can. 7th in the championship, that is where he arrived in coming this weekend, winning last time out in round 2. It's not going to be the same this time. Rikirikon, though, unfortunately retiring, so that is now 4 cars out of the race, and we can confirm that Tom 97 has regained control of his car. So there we have it. It's not all over yet for Tom 97. Alex Gillen still leads, 5.4 between he and Elray Guri in second place. Of course, Rasin Chai, who was in second and battling for the lead of the race. Now we see F1 Scott, I believe, coming into the pits to make a change off his set of tyres as now Noiguera goes on the attack of Peya. The Mercedes with ease, moving up into 4th.
Yep, away they go then, and so Noiguera then in this hard fight they've got here, really. I mean, if anything happens, of course, with the leaders, unlikely because they're all running around 5 seconds adrift from one another, but if it were to happen, then that's a podium in the offering. If not, then it's still 4th place. It's very, very good result for the Mercedes drivers. So, as it is right now, well, we were saying earlier that Dirk in the background reckons that there's a mother of all undercuts coming. As it turns out, he hasn't gotten that much further ahead of F1 Scott after all of that, and Scott's coming out with fresh tyres. So, of course, he's probably going to be able to catch and pass Curbs pretty quickly. If not this lap, then certainly the beginning of the next. And so, Curbs, then, whilst it was a valiant effort, I don't think it's really going to materialise in any actual results for them here.
Yeah, and obviously the time penalties that are on offer, while Scott does also have penalties against his name, Curbs has 6, Scott has 3, so there is still going to be the case that 3 seconds is going to displace Curbs in behind Scott. And F1 Scott already coming out of the pits, despite not yet even warming up his tyres to where they will probably need to be optimum. He is already on the tail of Curbs, and Curbs with a little brief flash of the light as he looks to recharge the car. Putting it through towards the next right hand, a great opportunity here for the Kick Sauber to get past this Williams. Of course, not really an overtaking point here in these very fast right-handers, but nevertheless, coming through this next left, maybe an opportunity coming through the final corner, or more likely, he might look to escalate the overtake, heading down the long straight in towards turn 1, to now hustle out of turn 16, and indeed getting a far better run than that of the Williams. Manages to now go side by side, and will get the Kick Sauber ahead of him this time around, goes into 10th place. Does F1 Scott. We also saw a little bit of a squabble between Peya and Noiguera. The RB Peya now up to 4th place. Tom 97 back in control, and he's already 5/10 in behind Noiguera, so may yet get a chance at moving into 5th.
Absolutely, there's all the chance in the world, and for F1 Scott, I think that there's not much further forward they can go, even though they've just got that overtake done on Curbs. They're going to drop them outside of DRS in the not too distant future. They have that 7-second gap that they need to overcome. And yes, their tyres are going to be very quick compared to some of those drivers ahead, but ultimately, once they catch, they then need to get another 3 seconds on the car in front. So that's all the things that they need to worry about there. It is a purple first sector for Scott, so he is the quickest driver on track right now. But yeah, it's maybe too little too late at this stage. Noiguera then comes out the final turn, fighting the two V-Carbs. Now both piloted by humans after we've been able to get Tom back into the virtual cockpit. And down to the first corner he goes, and he manages to defend nicely there, manages to keep the car planted in the part of the road that he needs to just fend off any potential assault from Tom 97 that time. And as they go through the next few corners, that is that. Welcome everybody from the audience of Jake over at Meraki. Please do give him a follow if you don't already, folks. He makes some good content when he's not sweating.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. We're running back on board with Tom 97, who's hunting down Noiguera. Already Tom 97 getting past Peya at this point. Now, F1 Scott's purple in both first and second sector on his brand new tyres, so has certainly discovered unlocking that pace. He's now clear of curbs by 2.5 seconds, and he's also managed to take the fastest lap as well alike. So it's been a good race so far for Scott, with every chance. Oh, wow! Noiguera with a huge tank slapper coming through that portion of circuit there, unsteadying the Mercedes, losing that rear end, and Tom 97 has taken 4th place away from Noiguera. Now, it was oh so simple after that error, and they're heading through towards the next left. Tom 97 with 5/10 at his disposal.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very good. Very easy way to be able to get past. But of course, it's not entirely over here for Noiguera. They've now got DRS, so they're going to catch back up to the back of Tom 97. Both cars flashing red lights on the back. So actually, I'd put their teammate in the driving seat. And yes, around the outside they go into turn 1. They're far enough ahead where they should then have the inside line to the next turn. But no, they give up. They back out. Peya dropping back behind Tom 97, presumably for the championship, to allow them to get back ahead and then start to disappear off into the distance. So for Noiguera, they're going to be bitterly disappointed. They've gone from potentially being able to get the overtake done on Tom 97 there, and will now end up shuffling backwards as a result.
As opposed to what we saw from Kick Sauber earlier on, the two RBs seemingly in cahoots and working together here at this point. Peya obviously understanding that Tom 97 is probably in the better position to earn the optimal number of points. 3.9 seconds between Tom 97 and Tim Marduk in 3rd place. Tom 97, as far as his team radio was concerned earlier on, believed that he was still in with a chance of claiming P2, so let's wait and see if he does achieve that. That is quite the statement should he pull that off, but already has gone to work at that delta, and he's closing it inwards towards Benjamin Daly, who sits in 3rd. 6.9 between Tim Marduk and Elray. Tom 97 now 3.7 and closing on the back of Tim Marduk, so keep your eyes peeled on that RB, everybody. Noiguera on the tail of Peya. Obviously, Peya is going to be doing the team favours, just giving Tom 97 that little bit of respite so he can just focus on what's in front of him. Just look at that gap now. Peya dropping off the back of Tom 97, and Tom 97 now 3.5 on the back of Benjamin Daly.
Absolutely. So there we go then. It is something that is coming down to the wire, I suspect, here, everybody. The few tenths being gained each lap here by Tom 97, provided his connection holds out. Then he will be able to catch Ben before the end of this race. Whether he then passes, of course, that's something else entirely. So when we come down to turn 1 here, we can see Fabio then going for a late braking maneuver to try and get themselves closer to curbs. Doesn't really end up working. They go deep into turn 1. That then loses them time on the exit and the run down to turn number 2. And as we then go through the next few turns, then they are not close enough to mount a challenge just yet on a driver who, in the past, has had a bit of a rough end of the stick, really, when it comes to the luck in races and other bits and pieces. This time, though, Curbs has impressed me quite a bit.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is definitely, aside from the penalties that he's received, one of his strongest appearances, I think, in the Creator Series. So maybe that, again, is an adaptation to the new game, maybe much like Elray Guri, the new handling model maybe suiting their style of driving. I would argue that this is probably the most aggressive we've seen Curbs in the Creator Series.
Yes, absolutely. And seeing them get their elbows out is nice. It's good. It shows that the driver isn't just going to be completely defeated the moment that they've been caught by somebody else, which, you know, it happens occasionally to some drivers. Sometimes it's a permanent thing in their driving careers, if you like, whether that be in the real world or virtually, like we see here, as we see now Razin opening up the DRS, going by Safso, both drivers with 3 seconds worth of time penalties, and so therefore the time is now for Razin to get their foot down and push on forwards, because whilst you've got then Matty D tucked in a second and a half back from Safso, if Razin is able to break the DRS to Safso over the course of this lap, then of course that means he will be able to start opening that gap up to Matty D, and therefore protecting themselves from potential DRS, potential retaliation at the end of the race, when, of course, that 3-second time penalty comes into play. But they're going to have to do it the hard way. There's no one in front to get DRS from. Tom 7 saying, we have no more pace. I'm flat out right now. And I tell you what, flat out is certainly doing well for him. He has gone from just over 3 seconds worth of gap to now 1.8 seconds of a gap to Benjamin Daly in front.
Yeah, whatever he's doing, it's working. It's 1.8 seconds now. Remember where it was before, folks? It wasn't long ago where we were talking about him being 4.5 seconds behind Tiermet Marduk, but now he's brought it well within 2 seconds. 1.8 of the realm. Still yet persevering. Rasin Chai, 3 seconds of time penalties. Goes from bad to worse already now for Rasin Chai. As now here comes Noiguera on the back of Peya, who's been holding him up for quite some time. Great chance though for Peya to maybe come back. Immediately went back into the error of the Mercedes before then venturing through towards turn 1. But I'm sure Peya will rest assured knowing that Noiguera will not have DRS on the back of Tom 97, who's now only 1.5 away from Tiermet Marduk this time. So I'm sure come the end of this lap, this very lap, he'll be within striking distance of a podium. Curbs, though, on the attack of Infratic, heading down through towards turn 1. He moves back into 11th place, with Infratic down to 12th.
Yep, so still some fighting, still some shuffling going on here, and whilst I applaud the attempt, really, from Curbs, ultimately, it's going to mean not very much in the end, because, oh dear, Tom 97. No. That reminds me of a season or two ago. He did the exact same thing at the exact same corner, just took it too tightly. Jumped over the apex, and that then nets him a 3-second time penalty. So what has been a very valiant drive to close up to the back of Ben Daly is now going to be something where if they do end up passing, which I suspect they will, they're then going to need an additional 3 seconds worth of time on them just to be able to get away. And as they come through the left-hander, that little slide costs them potentially getting DRS down the start, finish straight here, because that then, I think, for my money, puts them a bit too far back at the point where the detection line was.
Well, the mission
now,
he
doesn't. He has it.
He does have it. Now, also the mission on his part, break the 3-second gap on Noiguera. He's done that. So at this point, 4th place is on the table for sure for Tom 97, but I'm sure he'd like a little more. But it's one thing to close up to Tiermet Marduk. It's another thing to pass him, and then on top of that, add another 3 seconds onto the delta to secure a P3. And bear in mind, we're now on the, on the precipice. 5 laps remaining here, leading up towards the end of this race. Gillen with the win in hand. Infratic blast past Curbs yet again in that battle for 11th spot. Of course, this is not a battle to venture into the top 10, but Infratic, who has had a tough day at the office, managing to break away ahead of Curbs at this point. Both drivers will score points. Obviously, remember, top 15 all scoring. At this point, we only have 16 runners left in this race. There will be one driver who does not score at all. Tom 97, though, on the back of Tiermet Marduk this time around, and this is a podium battle. But bear in mind, Tom 97 needs to get past Tiermet Marduk and add 3 seconds in order to negate the penalty.
Radio from Infratic, where he says, I'm clearly faster. I don't need this, man. Well, he probably said it in a sexier accent than that, and he is right. He doesn't need this, but, you know, he's got potentially one more position he can claim if he does manage to get by F1 Scott. But Scott, of course, is 8 seconds up the road. It's going to need some Herculean laps. And whilst Fabio certainly has a Herculean figure, I'm not sure he's necessarily going to have the pace in that car at the end of the race here to be 4 seconds a lap faster to catch, pass, and then potentially get moved on another couple of drivers further up the road.
Yeah, well, Tom 97 has managed to get past Tiermet Marduk for 3rd place. Curbs getting past Infratic again for 11th spot. So the pace clearly not with Infratic. If he was faster, then he would have cleared Curbs in the middle sector where things get a little bit technical. It certainly has not happened for the Ferrari. And now once again, Curbs frustrating him here, even with his 6 seconds of time penalties. Defiance from Curbs here in this very race. Having a good race as well so far despite those penalties. Peya in 6th, trying to chase down Noiguera once again. Those two have been battling now for quite some time. And this is over that 5th spot, but Noiguera does have 3 seconds of time penalties in his own right that will go against him at the very end of the race should Peya stay clean right up through to the checkered flag. But in terms of our race leader, Alex Gillen, in a world of his own, just needs to bring this home. Lap 54 of 57. And the small matter of 3 laps, 4 laps if you include this one, remain as they look to take it right to the very end of this race. And it looks like for the very first time this season, a victory will go to Gillen, and it will be his 2nd podium of the campaign as well.
Absolutely. It's been a very good drive by Alex Gillen. They kept their head clean, not their head clean, sorry, their head calm, whilst others around them were losing theirs. And oh dear, Tom 97, another dropout in connection for them, and that means they're repassed on track by Ben Daly, and Ben will now build up another big lead to them before they're able to get back in the car once more, if they even do at this stage. Of course, they've got that 3-second time penalty, all their own doing, of course, not the AI that did that. And, well, then that's a big shame. That's a big shame for Tom 97. Really, it's the race that got away from them here today. I've no doubt it would be them fighting Alex Gillen for the win here, if not for all the various issues that they've had. And that safety car, of course, managed to bring the field back close together, as it initiated some of what we've seen, but ultimately this is not looking too far away from what we saw at the beginning of the race here. But a big shout out to F1 Scott, who at this rate will finish in P8, I believe, because Rasenchai and Safso will go behind them. Matty D will go in front of them because of all the penalties that are involved at this stage. So yeah, P7 for them, no, P8 for them, I should say. That is a very, very good effort from our commentator turned driver.
Yeah, fantastic effort from F1 Scott. And I must say, I think when we're having conversations about driver of the day, you of course can have your say in the comment section, folks. We of course will have our say too. And I must say, looking at it, I've got to give it to Tiamat Marduk, I think, on the basis that 3rd place from being outside the top 10 like he was, I think to mastermind the strategy as he did, not to mention he had wing damage in the opening stint prior to the safety car, took that moment during the safety car phase to get that wing change and put himself in this position, I think says a lot. Tom 97, though, Herculean effort, back in the game again in a bid to try and retake that podium. But as time trickles outwards, he's lost DRS once again. And I think given the fact that that 3-second time penalty also needs to be negated, he's going to be up against it.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Usually I'm a contrarian here on the broadcast when it comes to things like driver of the day and stuff like that. I always want to have a different opinion, highlight someone else, but really, I would have to agree with you. Ben Daly, driver of the day for me. It's been an absolutely brilliant drive. Of course, you know, yeah, we've seen great pace at the front from Alex, from El Rey. We've seen good moments for Racing, but ultimately strategy hasn't gone there. What on earth has happened there? That's a big retirement. Both the V-Cubs have taken each other out. That's out the final turn. One of them was sideways. The other one's gone straight into them. We saw the briefest of glimpses of that as we switched to a camera angle that looked down the start-finish straight, where one of the cars was pointed sideways before the contact was made. And oh my giddy aunt, that is insult to injury.
Well, we have seen some moments between V-Cub, or should we say RB drivers in the past, quoting Yuki Tsunoda, of course, and Daniel Ricciardo. But this time, it's the turn of Tom 97 and Peya to come together. Some major shocks occurring on the penultimate lap of the race. No safety car in sight because we are in the closing stages of the race. But a shocker and an insult to injury, salt in the wound for Tom Martinez, who will not score a single point. Well, he might score a point given the fact that he is still within the top 16, top 15. Of course, he's completed a significant portion of the race. But just on the basis now that all the other cars are going to go past, surely, no, he will not score a single. It might be a single point,
actually.
It
will be 1 point, I think. Yeah, I think he'll be 15th place come the end of that.
Wow.
And TK is going to review that afterwards. So we will get a full breakdown of that for you folks, but not for another lap or so.
Yeah, absolutely right. Alex Gillen, though, who is the other way. There's Peya in the bottom right of your screen. Of course, one of those figures involved in that hellacious moment that occurred heading through the final bend, but coming through the final bend on the final lap for the first time this season. Of course, it's not quite the correct car we were looking at. Matty D. It was slightly delayed at that point, folks. Do apologise, but it won't be long before we do see this man take the checkered flag. Of course, Alex Gillen, who has been absolutely tremendous through the course of this race. Pace has been in his favour. He's avoided all the carnage, all the drama, maintaining a significant level of it though. However, through the entirety of this race, despite El Rey Guri putting down the display in the opening 2 races that have lauded him with a race victory and a P2. Gillen came to respond. It's been a magnificent performance here, Dan.
It certainly has, yeah. Alex Gillen, class of the field here today in terms of consistency, in terms of overall pace, of course. Starting well, good qualifying position, and now a good race run through the final turn. And now up to the line will come Alex Gillen to take a win for Haas in this latest season of Creator Series.
Yep, it will be as he crosses the line. His first win this season, his second podium of the campaign. Coming across the line, El Guri, a perfect 3 podiums to kickstart his campaign, and no doubt will still maintain his lead in the championship. And then coming up towards the line, following suit, a tremendous drive from Tiamat Marduk, who finishes in 3rd place. A magnificent drive on his part too, his first podium of the season, with Noiguera finishing in 4th, Rasin Chai drops to 6th with Matty D. No penalties going against his name, meaning he finishes in P5. Scott in 7th, Sapso in 8th. Curbs comes across the line to finish in P9 on track, but it will go to Infratic due to the penalty count. JD Devil Noob has got to finish the lap in his own right. Will, of course, finish in 11th place. Be Good will finish in 12th, or it might yet be, in fact, he will finish 13th because Gwatz is only with 3 seconds of time penalties. Be Good has got 9 seconds. Jack Socials, in his very first appearance in the Creator Series, will finish 14th and will claim his first points of the season. Alex Gillen, no bottles now. We're bringing it home. So there you go. Alex Gillen in style, taking victory here at Losail.
Absolutely. Round the final turn, we get Be Good and Gwatz, last runners on the circuit. Everybody else finished or out of the race. And that is that. So we'll get the full rundown of the order for you in just a second, everybody, but that was a pretty good Qatar Grand Prix, I think it must be said. Driver of the day by the game, Benjamin Daly. Driver of the day for both of us, Benjamin Daly. Let us know in the chat who you think driver of the day is, but I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few Benjamin Daly suggestions down there. So let's see then, out onto the podium come your top 3. We have Alex Gillen, we have El Guri, and we have Benjamin Daly. 2 champions and 1 potential champion in waiting. But of course, it is very early doors just yet. We can't even see he has one hand on the trophy. He might have a finger curled around, getting ready for the rest of the hand to embrace it. But El Rey then, another good result. The only driver to be on the podium all 3 times so far this season. And so let's wait and see then as to how this season unfolds. Let's now take a look at the rest of those standings. For 4th place down, we then have Noiguera, Matty D, Rasin Chai, F1 Scott, Safso, Infratic, Curbs, Devil Noob, Watts, and then Be Good and Jack Socials finishing out the actual race finishers on track. Then for your DNFs, we have Tom97 and Peya after that freak accident right at the end. For then Ricky Rickon, Meraki, Mr. Dale JE, and GB68. I believe all 4 retiring in the pit lane.
Yeah, not forgetting as well, fastest lap going to F1 Scott, a fabulous race on his part, and not only a P7 to end the day, but he also picks up some really useful points that will help him in terms of the championship. Of course, other points on the table. Meraki picking up the intermediate pole, remember, as well through the course of qualifying. So what a fabulous race. Drama across the board. In terms of a spectator standpoint, plenty to look at. I do want, of course, bring in TK, who should be able to give us some, certainly some information as to what actually happened at the very end. TK, help us out.
It was really unfortunate for the VCARB drivers. Obviously, Tom97, who'd been plagued with a plethora of internet issues this afternoon. It was just one more cherry on the top for himself this afternoon. You can see, hopefully, on board, we can see here, just as he gets himself back into the lobby for the last couple of laps, managing to try and take control. The AI lets go right in the middle of the corner. He's not prepped for it, and strands himself correctly, or, well, unfortunately, in the middle of the circuit. We can find Perja's POV as well rather quickly. You can see the VCARB, you can see the blue car on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see the spin, and it's just unfortunate for Perja. He can't get out of the way, and it's a little bit of a coming together for teammates. Not uncommon here, but rather unfortunate.
Oh, very unfortunate indeed. Thank you so much, TK, for that one.
Oh.
Obviously, the perfect way
It's
to end
such
the
the
race.
contrast of
I mean-
emotions there from those drivers. You have Tom, who's clearly done with the day, basically, at that point, and sort of just like, well, yeah, it is what it is. Of course, that was going to happen. And then you have Peya, who, I don't speak French, but I imagine that there was an awful lot of French swearing going on there at that point.
Well,
from all the hand waving and everything else that was going on too.
Can confirm there was.
Well,
there you go.
I bet there was. I bet there was. Just before we go to the interviews, I think Tom's reaction was just almost, of course. I think at that point, I think just to end the day. Luckily enough, he did obviously secure a point come the very end. But we do have interviews currently pending, folks. We are going to kickstart, I think, with our race winner. We've got to. Alex Gillen has to be the first. Does he not? After what can only be described as a very fraught and action-packed race, this man probably had the quietest second stint of anybody. I mean, Alex, you're joining us in the commentary box. A fabulous effort on your own right, on your own part. Your first win of the season. It's not bad.
It's never quiet at Qatar. It's never quiet at Qatar. Those track limits. Oh my word. Yeah, I had 2 warnings in the end. El Rey as well had really great pace at the end. He definitely picked up the pace throughout the race and was keeping me honest. I think he was pushing to try and get within 3 seconds just in case. But yeah, I mean, obviously on my own for the second half, but as a driver, you always love that. It's always a great feeling, just winning from the front. Appreciate it's not the best content. I'm sure it was not the best from where you guys were sat, but it feels good, especially at Qatar. I don't want to overstate it, but if you were to tell me the one track on the whole calendar that I would definitely not win on, I would definitely choose Qatar. I thought I was terrible at Qatar, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I should say as well, GG's Tom 97, obviously disconnecting several times in that race. He at least should have been P2 in that race for sure. He was a bit quicker than me. We would have been a dicey, me and him, I think, for the win. But obviously all his disconnects took him out of it, which was a shame. But yeah, I mean, look, I take it. To be honest, I can't do much about it. So good race for me. Kept it clean. I'm buzzing. I won Qatar. I can't believe it.
Well, I mean, that is quite something. Not a bad way to take your first win of the season as well. And I think what's also interesting, El Rey Guri continuing his 100% podium record, I think, since the start of the campaign. I don't think anyone would have predicted this, I think, coming into F1 24. Just goes to show, do you think the handling model suiting certain drivers that perhaps it hasn't suited in the past?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously the handling changed quite a bit year on year, so there was always going to be a few people that would gain, a few people that would lose. I think up until today at least, Ben was struggling a bit more with the handling first couple of races. He seems to have a good pace today, so we sorted that out. But yeah, definitely El Rey for me is probably one of the people that have made one of the bigger steps for sure. I mean, he's absolutely rapid for your first 3 rounds. As you said, 100% podium rate is ridiculous. In fact, is it P1 or P2 even? He's not even had a P3 yet, I don't think.
No, he hasn't. P1 and P2, yeah, 2 P2s now.
That's mad. That's mad. Unfortunately, I've been quite consistent, so I think it's pretty close to the championship. But I mean, if he keeps that up, he's going to be very, very hard to beat in the championship. So yeah, he's definitely absolutely rapid on F1 24.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early days. We've got plenty of races lined up, a long season ahead. I mean, what are your ambitions? I mean, you're a champion as well in the past where it comes to Creator Series, so you've been there and done it and got the T-shirt. Where do you foresee the rest of this season going? Because I don't think we've heard the last of the changes for the handling model just yet.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, you always got to go for the championship, right? You always got to aim high. Yeah. Obviously, I'd love to. Unfortunately, there's no drop rounds in Creator Series at the moment. We were calling for it behind the scenes to allow us to have a week off and not affect the championship too much, but that's not been introduced just yet. So, I mean, look, if El Rey keeps up his form and turns up to every race, I miss one race, that's basically GG's. I need to win basically all the other races, to be honest. I think it will come down to whether I can make all the races. I don't know if I can or not. That's ultimately what the championship comes down to these days. Who's the biggest sweat, essentially, and obviously consistent results. But look, I mean, I'm just enjoying it. I actually enjoyed that race. That was, like I said, I don't like Qatar. That was a really good fun race. I'm just gonna shoot for wins, and what happens in the championship. We'll have to wait and see on that one.
You certainly will do, Alex, but tremendous job on taking a victory. Your first one this season. I'm sure it won't be the last either, but congratulations nonetheless. Yeah, we'll see you in round 4.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Alex. Alex Gillen, everybody. Race winner at Qatar. We can bring in as well. In fact, they're both ready to go. We'll bring in El Rey Guri next in because David Castilla, as he is also known as. El Rey, you're joining us in the commentary box. Great to have you with us. What a start to the season you are having, sir. 2 races in, you were a winner and a second placer. 3rd race in, a second place. 100% podium record, the only driver to do it so far. You must be thrilled.
Yeah, I'm really happy with my performance. However, it's been tough. The last race I was having COVID, and well, during this race I didn't have pace. I struggled a lot with the front left tire. I had 2 times more tire degradation compared with Alex Guillon, and nevertheless I was able to fight for the victory, more or less. And yeah, really difficult. Really pleased with the team. It's a bit pity that my teammate has retired today, because we are doing a great job in the Constructor Championship, which is also one of our objectives to win so.
Yeah, I mean, Elray, you've had a fantastic season so far. Easily your best Creator Series season to date, I would say. You know, as someone who isn't generally in the battle for wins on a regular basis, I mean, this is by far a contrast on your part. How do you envisage this season going? Because I must say, based on what we've already seen from back at Monaco, even when we got started back in round 1, you took victory in the very first round. What a way to start the season. You've now followed it up with 2 P2s. The form is there, the consistency is there. Can that stay the same throughout the entirety of the season?
It will, hopefully. At the moment, we've suffered with, let's say, battles and awareness, because normally in F1 23 we had more pace. However, I had to deal with everybody in the field. They fight in a stronger way to me compared to others. And also in F1 23 you had more tow, and it was hard to me to pull out from others who were slower. And in terms of awareness, I wasn't as good as now. I'm taking a different approach. For example, at the beginning of the race, I let racing Alex Guillon pass, because I didn't want to, let's say, lose tire degradation. And I am trying, let's say, to be aggressive in the key moments rather than every single time. For example, today we've lost the race because for the other Haas, Matti was deploying all the ERS battery, and that was a pity because he was also losing time as I did. So without that, probably we would have won the race. But yeah, like you said, previously I wasn't in the fight because I lack of that patience. Now I am taking this method, let's say, like, okay, I'm going to wait to my moment and then attack to my maximum of the abilities.
Growth, Elray. I call that growth. Fabulous. I mean, I'm looking in the live chat now. All of your fans are now dominating the chat space right now. Have you got a message for them in your own language for us?
Grande, chavales. Seguir así y vamos a ver si podemos conseguir el campeonato.
Fabulous. Elray, thank you so much. Congratulations. 100% podium record. Hey, it's a pleasure. Great to have you here. 3rd time running as well. Amazing. We'll look forward to seeing you for round 4. We'll wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Elray Guri, David Castilla, everybody. We can now, I think Tiamat Marduk is waiting in the wings, or is he not? I think he might have disappeared. Have we got him? I'm not
Hello.
sure. Yes, here he is.
How are we?
We're very good, thank you, Ben. I must say, in our view, without a doubt, you are the driver of the day today. What a performance. I mean,
Didn't feel like it.
I beg to differ. I mean, that was some drive. Remember, you started in the bottom 10. Somehow, you find yourself in P3 on the podium. I mean, that is hard fought.
Yeah, that's probably the best summary of it, really. I really had to fight hard for it. I didn't feel like I had the pace of the podium. I just slowly elevated my way through the drama and the pack. Yeah, a lot of those guys in the top 10, like Curbs, F1 Scott, the Guerra, like Perriot, they're all so quick. I told my chat just before, I was literally like splitting hairs with like where I could find pace on them. It was really hard. I just had to use battery in different spots than them and had to catch them out. And I think I got a bit fortunate at one point when they started squabbling, and I was able to run away then with Tom. But yeah, that was tough. I'm a bit washed for pace on F1 24. I'm not gonna lie. Same thing happened with 23, but every week I'm learning. So hopefully just pick up things along the way, really.
Well, if there's one thing you can take from this, I mean, obviously this is your first podium of the season when you look at it on paper, so it's progression, you know, as we all like to see. Maybe a slight bit of fortune with Tom 97 having his problems.
Oh, absolutely. He was clear. The top 3 and Tom were clear today. I got very fortunate with that. I got fortunate with other people like Matty D, like having to do an extra pit stop. Curbs had to do an extra pit stop. I just went pretty conservative on strategy and trying to minimize mistakes, and that worked out. But yeah, Tom was absolutely rapid. He deserved to be up there fighting for the win. It was just a shame that things out of his control just took it away.
We asked what the warning count was for you at the very end, because obviously you were one of the few that didn't actually get a penalty through the course of that race.
I was on 1 for the whole race, and,
wow.
and when I got the 1, I was raging. But Tom was telling me actually midway through the race I wasn't taking enough risk. That's where like the lack of pace maybe was. He was really pushing the limits with the high speed stuff. So yeah, one to learn for next week, I guess.
Yeah, well, progression is progression, as we always say. First podium of the campaign, a grand effort from you, reigning champion of the Creator Series as well. We look forward to seeing you back in round 4.
Thanks, guys. Make sure to change that shirt to orange for next week.
Yeah, you'll have to.
If I get up here.
Yeah, we can't be having red. We can't be having red this time.
We don't speak about Ferrari no more.
You said the F word.
Forget about the F word.
I'm back home, Dan. Let's go.
Hey!
Bye, guys.
Brilliant, thank you. Benjamin Daly, everybody. Amazing. Fabio, gone and forgotten as far as he's concerned. But yeah, I mean, that's our podium sitters, isn't it? I mean, and Dan, what a performance, I think, on part of Alex Gillen. But you've got to look at the fact that there have been 2 other brilliant performances. When you look at El Guri and you also look, at Tiamat Marduk. I mean, to drive from where he did in the bottom 10 to find himself up there and fighting, I think that's a testament to his ability. Well, to all their abilities at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of these things where when you see of course, it's a marathon. It's not it's not doing a 5-lapper open lobby. It's not doing a 15 and 30% race or anything like that, where you're just going to, you're going to end up going in there and you're going to end up doing all these other bits and pieces, and it's going to be something relatively short. It's the full-on, hour and a half Grand Prix experience. There's a huge mental fatigue that goes on in there, aside from, of course, the physical fatigue of having to hit your controls every time, and the way some of the drivers set them up. Of course, they've got either the high force feedback direct drive wheelbases, or they've got the load cell pedals, or some even now have the force feedback pedals as well, which give them more in the way of resistance. So it's just one of those things where to be able to go out there and, Alex said it himself, it's a bit of a boring thing to watch maybe in terms of his drive today, because it was just sort of setting good laps. But to set good laps for 57 laps is quite remarkable. I personally like to think I'm reasonably quick in most racing games, but you'll often find in the F1 games there's a liberal use of the flashback button before I get to the end of a 100% race, or even a 50% race. So it's very impressive what they do.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think we'll bring TK in as well for a 3-way conversation, because I'm intrigued to get his perspective on the top 3 as well. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, TK, I mean, the fact we got 3 drivers who impressed on the day. Tom 97 also impressed as well. I commiserations to him, and obviously with everything that happened through the course of that juggernaut of a Grand Prix. I think what this leads us up to is a very competitive run right through the course of this championship. There is no surefire favourite to win this title this year, I don't think.
I think you're absolutely correct in that. There's some very good tracks coming up that may favour one driver compared to another, but as you've said, it's a very open championship right now. Tom 97 has showed today that he has fantastic pace, albeit with those connection issues that have wounded him, shall we say, over the last couple of hours. But unfortunately, they happen in virtual motorsport, and I'm sure he won't be the last driver to suffer them in the realms of possibilities. But he's shown today that not only can he come back from the adversity, that he is consistently quick even when it comes with him.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to talk about as well, I mean, El Rey's performances this season. Again, another fantastic podium record that we've got to discuss. I mean, can he maintain this, Dan?
He could well do. It's one of these things where, you know, if they're able to, as they were saying earlier on, if you're able to kind of change that mindset, be a bit more patient in terms of how you approach a problem. You know, when we saw their overtaking on screen today, albeit there was not much in the way of overtaking because of where they found themselves on the track, but, you know, it was measured. It was a bit more restrained. It wasn't like what we've seen in the past where we would kind of just sort of dive into something and then sort of hope that everything sticks. So it's good to see, and I think that with the consistency of pace as well that we're seeing in this early part of the season, in this sort of early adopter period of the game, if you like, then yeah, I don't see any reason why they couldn't take it all the way to the end.
No, not at all. And with that, of course, we can talk about the podium records and things of that nature, results and grand performances. Let's take a look at the standings and see where we're currently sitting in terms of the run to the Season 7 Championship. Obviously, still a long way to go, but our Championship leader, El Rey Guri, 69 points. Though he still has it, the gap has shrunk by a little bit. 3 points now between Alex Gillen and El Rey Guri, with GB68 still in third despite retiring from the race today. Aston Martin still very much in the driving seat as well for the team's title race. Of course, if they don't win it now, you'd fathom, you'd throw, some people might throw the word bottle out there. It's not the first time that GB's had that thrown at him. Remember Vegas not too long ago. Meraki in fourth, 31 points away, only a solitary point behind GB. Tim McMardock in fifth after a grand podium performance, his first podium of the season, now 45 against his name. Just looking at those results, they're not in the right order.
They're not, no.
Tim McMardock, it should be in third off the back of all this, as I so rightly said during the race. But yeah, I think
we'll do it live, they said.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
It's fine. I mean, I can give you an estimate here, if you like, George. I think it's El Rey, Alex, Ben, Racing, Tom, Matty, F1's... No, sorry, I've completely missed GB and Meraki there. So after Tom 97, it's then GB, then Meraki, then Matty, then Scott, and then others. But that makes up, I think, a top 10, so we can leave it there.
Well, we can actually reload this, so I'm gonna have a word. Come on, Dirk, reload the screen, Dirk. Reload the screen, Dirk.
Dirk, reload the screen.
Dirk,
reload the screen.
Reload the screen, Dirk Navitt.
Dirk, I'm being serious now. Reload the screen.
Reload the screen, Dirk. Reload it. Okay, big thank you to TK, who's been working his magic in the background. This is the order, everybody. We have El Rey. He is on top. He is the championship leader, 69 points. Alex Gillen in second, 3 points behind him. Tim McMardock, third place, 45 points. Rasin Chai in fourth, 2 points behind Tim McMardock. Tom 97 in fifth on 34. That could have been very different had he managed to finish on the podium today, as he probably should have done. GB68 now down to 6 off the back of it, so Aston Martin not in that prosperous position where I thought they would be, though they are still very much up there. Meraki in 7th, Matty D in 8th after, I would argue, a great performance today, as well as F1 Scott, Infratic in 10th. But you get a taste, you get a flavour of where this championship's going. But there's some key names there, Dan. M-Sky-Z, for example. Someone who has been in the championship equation on multiple times. Many would argue that he is a champion in waiting. But being where he is right now, and given the other contenders that are in the fight, it's going to be that much harder for him, is it not?
It is. I mean, it's obviously early doors. It's a very, very early stage of the season, but... I would go so far as to say it's already kind of season over for them. I don't want to say that because anything can happen, but when the leaders are near enough, exactly 55 points ahead of you, then that is where things become very, very difficult in terms of the overall management of your campaign, your strategy, of your mindset as well. And I think it should be worth saying that we wish you all the best to M-Sky-Z, who decided to bow out of this evening's events.
Well, Le Mans is on, after all.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully they come back swinging with the next one.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. So there you have it, folks. That is the complexion of the championship race. We can now talk in amongst ourselves again. I mean, yes, a very competitive championship. Let's talk about the socials now as we bring an end to the broadcast, of course, folks. If you've enjoyed everything you've witnessed here this evening, of course, you can check out the F1 Creator Series on all the major social networks. First and foremost, though, please make sure, if you've been tuned in on TikTok, Twitch, please make sure you slap a follow. Hit that follow button down below. If you've been watching on YouTube, big hello to you guys as well. Hit that subscribe button. That's the big red button with subscribe written on it in white lettering. And make it grey for us by hitting that sub button. And also leave a like by hitting the thumbs up. And I tell you what, folks, if you've enjoyed the broadcast as well, and if you want to find out a little bit more about the Creator Series, Instagram as well as X, formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok at F1 Creator Series. They're all the same. You can check those out and be sure to stay up to date with everything and all the latest news around the series. If you liked us as well, if you enjoyed the commentary, how could you not? Dan Gilligan was there, and TK as well. You can check us out as well. My name being, of course, George Morgan, your commentator today alongside this illustrious pairing as well. At It's George Morgan on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, as well as many other places. It's always the same, at It's George Morgan. Daniel, where can they find you, sir?
They can find me not many places, actually. DA Gilligan on Instagram, and that's about it. That's all really from me.
Where can they find you, TK?
Well, it's all at the newly updated handle at They Call Me TK.
They call you TK. I call you TK as well. So there you can find him, everybody. It's been a pleasure having you all with us for this Qatar. Well, should be the mystery GP, but Qatar certainly delivering a little bit of spice. We had rain in qualifying, unbelievable, but the race was dry, and it ended up being the day of Alex Gillen. He took victory, his first of the season. The question is, can he make it to? We'll venture again on round 4. We'll see you then, folks. Take care. Goodbye.